Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen, and thank you for joining me for another journey into the world of shinobi. Before we begin, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who listens, supports the channel, and enjoys these stories. Today's story is titled The White Fox. After the failed Sasuke Retrieval Mission, Naruto is banished from Konoha. After realizing that this place was never a home, he accepted it, and vowed to become stronger than anyone on the planet. Several years later, and after starting a family, Naruto is sought after by Konoha for help. How will this all play out for the White Fox? This is a fan-made story inspired by the world of Naruto. All characters in the original universe belong to their respective creators. This narration is created for entertainment purposes as part of a transformative storytelling experience. The story itself was written by StringDman, and full credit goes to the original author. If you would like to read the original version, the link to this story is included in the video description below. If you like my content and want to keep up with future updates, hit that subscribe button and don't forget leave a like if you enjoyed the video. It not only helps me but helps with YouTube algorithm. Now sit back, relax and enjoy. Chapter 1: A Banished Fox. Naruto had just had the battle of his life not too long ago. A battle with his so-called best friend Sasuke Uchiha. The two had went at it with so much will and determination to win in the Valley of the End that it was a miracle either killed each other somehow. Even Kakashi was surprised by this when he arrived too late. He couldn't find Sasuke, but he did find an unconscious Naruto laying there, bleeding from an open wound to the chest. Kakashi couldn't understand at first. Why would Sasuke use that jutsu to try and kill Naruto? Despite everything those two had been through, the ups and downs and even the arguments, Kakashi thought beyond a shadow of a doubt that the two were brothers in arms no matter what. Naruto's bleeding body being carried by the copy ninja told him otherwise. Kakashi was sent out there to also retrieve Sasuke, but arrived too late to do so. If he knew anything for sure, he knew that somehow, the council would find some way of punishing Naruto for all of this. As the silver-haired man finally reached the gates of Konoha, he quickly hurried to the hospital to get Naruto treated. Not to his surprise, most of the retrieval team had been sent to the hospital as well. Shikamaru was waiting on a chair outside the emergency room when Kakashi came in. When he saw the trail of blood, his heart sank at the thought of how he nearly got his entire team killed. Kakashi brought Naruto to the emergency room and then quickly headed out to inform Tsunade. He dreaded what she would think of all of this. The mission failed, Sasuke as a traitor, and the team aside from Shikamaru nearly killed. She was gonna have a field day with this. As Kakashi was headed to see Lady Hokage, Naruto was being operated on. In his own mind, he played everything out over and over again. Sasuke had tried to kill him more than once, and even came extremely close a few times. If the open wound nearly a fist-sized hole in his chest gave off any indication of Sasuke's motivation, Naruto couldn't believe how far his teammate had fallen in the quest for power and revenge. It was sickening to the blonde at how much Sasuke was praised only for him to shove it back in everyone's face. How could he do this to a village that's bent over backwards for him? He just threw it all away for some revenge plan? In Naruto's opinion, that was a very foolish mindset. Throwing away everything for revenge. Hey, Kit! That deep voice rang through his ears again like before. It sounded a little less sinister this time though. Almost calming really. Open your eyes, Kit! Naruto did as he was told and slowly opened his eyes with some strain. When he fully opened them and focused, he saw that he was in some kind of sewer of some kind with a large gate in front of him. Though, it wasn't the surroundings or the gate that made the blonde go wide-eyed. No, it was what was inside that gate. A large red fox. The nine-tailed fox. Naruto immediately leapt to his feet only to realize that the floor was mainly water. He looked at the fox with fear plastered on his face, yet that stopped when he noticed the look in the fox's eyes. It wasn't the look of a demon who craves destruction and death, but just a being who looked concerned for someone. You can relax, Kit. The fox started in a regular-like tone. You know something, Kit, if I hadn't have jumped in then and there, you would have died. You know that, right? Naruto relaxed when he heard the fox's words. It was true. If it hadn't stepped in, then he would be dead from that chidori through his chest. So, Naruto started with a look of confusion. Why did you save me then? The fox still had a saddened look to its face as it thought of the answer to that question for a bit. True, if Naruto died then it would die, but for the fox there was more to it than that. A somewhat deeper connection of sorts that it's never felt with any of its other vessels before. A sorrow that could be felt with the both of them while also a small ray of hope as well. It connected the two together in a way that even it didn't understand. With a sigh, the fox lowered its head and averted its gaze away from Naruto. The blonde didn't know why, but he could feel the sorrow coming from the fox spirit. Well, whatever the reason, Naruto started, causing the fox to wince, thinking that its jailer would do what the others would do. Thank you? The nine-tailed fox opened its eyes quickly and turned to Naruto, surprised that the boy thanked it. Before it could say anything, Naruto felt himself waking from wherever he was. He faded away from the fox and left it to ponder just what kind of vessel Naruto was, and how different he was from the others. Hospital room, a week after the mission. Naruto felt himself stir from sleep and opened his eyes slowly. He was quickly met by sunlight that was coming into his room and groaned. He covered his eyes with his right hand and noticed very quickly of how heavily taped his arm was. The medical tape stretched all the way from his palm and wrist to his elbow. He sat up from his bed and winced slightly at his still banged-up body. Upon further inspection of his body, Naruto could tell that most of his body was bandaged up from the chidori and the scratches and cuts from his battle with Sasuke. Naruto really had to thank the fox for its healing abilities. If it weren't for that, then Naruto probably wouldn't have made it even halfway to Konoha. Aside from those wounds and the bandages from using a very powerful and dangerous Rasengan, Naruto was actually alright. He looked around for any sign of a doctor or any of his friends in the room. To his surprise, there was no one there to watch him. This reminded him a bit of his childhood whenever he was sent to the hospital by an umbu. Whenever he would wake up, there was no one there to check on him or ask if he was okay in any way. Now was feeling vaguely like before. Naruto decided to get up off the bed and move around a bit to loosen his stiff muscles. Who knows just how long he was out. He moved his arms and legs a bit to get some feeling back into them before heading to the window to see the village. It was another bright and sunny day in Konoha. People were going about their daily lives as if nothing bad has happened. Naruto was at least happy to see that people weren't going off about their precious Sasuke being a traitor. Though, with Naruto's knowledge of how the villagers tend to act, the blame was probably gonna be put on him somehow. As Naruto leaned down on the windowsill, he failed to hear the door open and a masked umbu to enter. The umbu was a woman in a Nico mask and purple hair that was tied up at the moment. She saw that Naruto was up now and visible tensed up. She knew what her job was to do and dreaded every bit of it. Taking a deep breath, the umbu spoke. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto turned to see her standing in the doorway and jumped a bit from her sudden appearance in his room. As soon as you are able, your presence is needed in the council meeting. Before Naruto could even say an okay, the umbu was gone in a shenshin. That was a red flag right there. Naruto decided to shrug it off and get himself ready to be yelled at by this council yet again. He didn't hate the council, surprisingly enough. He just hated that they blamed him for many things in the village. A few of them have even taken part in a previously annual fox hunt years ago, when Naruto was kicked out of the orphanage. Those were dark days that Naruto were glad that was long behind him. It took a while, but Naruto was finally able to get out of the hospital and get into some of his comfortable clothes. His jacket that he wore when he arrived was shredded now, so he just tied around his waist while wearing his normal clothes and headband around his neck to hide some bandages. As Naruto left the hospital and took in the fresh air, he couldn't help but think more than a few eyes were on him wasn't an uncommon thing to the blonde, but he hasn't felt like people were staring at him with hate for a while now. As he walked down to get to Hokage Tower, he felt as if he was a child again with the way he actually saw people looking at him. Deciding to shrug it off, Naruto just continued on to get this over with and get some ramen later on. He would have to talk to his friends and sensei later unless he ran into them at some point. I can't believe that demon brat let Sasuke leave. One person whispered to another as Naruto passed them. I know. If anything, I really wish the Uchiha could have killed that monster and rid us all of it. Another whispered. When I heard that he was still somehow alive and lost the Uchiha, I just wanted to smother the little demon for it. Another whisper. Well, he is hurt now. So why don't we just finish him off? Because then that old bitch of a Hokage would have us executed. Humph. Seeing that demon walking around, knowing that he's the reason that Sasuke is lost to us makes me so mad. The whispers were starting to get a little louder now for Naruto to hear clear as day. He should die. It's all his fault. The demon should just disappear. Something like him shouldn't exist in our village. Maybe we should do another fox hunt this year. Naruto's happy mood shifted to depressed when he heard the various comments he hadn't heard in nearly a year. He had long since thought that maybe the villagers were starting to look at him a ninja and started to respect him in the slightest. But with this one act, that was no more. Naruto didn't want to hear any more and just ran off to get this meeting over with and go home to rest. Council meeting. Tsunade had just been informed about Naruto's recovery and soon arrival to the meeting. She went wide-eyed and hated what she had no choice but to do now. If she knew Naruto, she knew that he would be torn up about what was about to happen to him. She looked around to the Shinobi Council and saw a mixture of anger and sadness. It was understandable since most of their children were good friends with the Jinchuriki in the first place. Seeing the look on the boy's face when he was told this will haunt them for a long number of days. She then looked to the civilian council and was appalled by the smirks and satisfied glares they had. It sickened Tsunade that these people were the main reason that Naruto's life was such hell when he was only a frightened child. If Tsunade had her way, many of those council members would suffer by her hands. Her angry thoughts were shattered though when Naruto walked through the door. She looked over to the boy and paled upon his entry. That was another red flag to Naruto. Tsunade never paled to anything unless it was horrible news. Naruto stood in front of the council and waited to hear just what they planned on doing about the failed Uchiha recovery mission. Genin Naruto Uzumaki. Tsunade started after a couple of minutes of waiting. Naruto didn't say anything and just looked at her with those bright blue eyes of his. I'm so sorry, Naruto. She thought before continuing. Because of your failure in retrieving Sasuke Uchiha, and nearly getting your team killed, you are hereby dash. She hesitated for a few seconds before taking a deep breath and continuing again. Banished from Konoha. Naruto went absolutely wide-eyed as his jaw dropped to the floor. He couldn't form any words to describe how he felt towards this. Anger? Betrayal? Hatred? Sadness? Denial? He didn't know. All he knew was that Tsunade hated having to say those dreaded words and the Shinobi Council hated hearing them. He turned to the civilian council and saw their satisfied looks and disgusted glares as he processed this whole thing. You have until 10 a.m. tomorrow to pack your things and leave the village, or you will be met with force, Tsunade said as she looked away from his sad eyes. Those eyes he made would haunt her dreams for the rest of her life now. Naruto still couldn't say anything. He just couldn't. There were still no words to describe this feeling, this emptiness he had long thought was filled was now blank once again. Holding back tears, Naruto turned slowly as he walked back towards the door and left the room. Tsunade wanted to go and console him, but was stopped by one of the elders with the bandages around his face. She could only watch as Naruto's world came crashing down around him over the sake of one traitorous brat. As Naruto wailed with the same wide-eyed look back to his rat hole of a home, his mind still couldn't process all of this. What just happened? He thought to himself. First the villagers were back to talking down on him, now he was banished because he failed to bring back a traitor? He was loyal to this village for his entire life. He stayed here with the hope of one day becoming Hokage and earning everyone's respect. No matter how hard the beatings, the near-deaths, the tortures he went through, or any other harsh treatment he had from these people, he was always loyal. Then one failed mission to bring back this village's precious loyal Uchiha, and he was banished? That made no sense to him in the slightest. As he walked on with his stiff and still shocked expression, he could still hear the villagers bashing him. Of the various insults and hurtful remarks towards him, one word kept coming up. Demon. That word was said to him for as long as he remembered. That word carried too much volume in how much it hurt him. To be called a demon when he's done nothing to truly hurt anybody was the worst part of it all. As he finally made it to his home, he went up to room and closed the door. After he did that, he slumped to the floor and the tears he held in were let out along with a scream. Why? Why did this happen to me? He thought to himself as he continued to sob into his hands. Why? 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 Because of me. That deep voice was back and quickly got Naruto's attention as he noticed he was back in that sewer again. He looked up to the fox and saw that it had a saddened expression to its face. I'm so sorry, Naruto. If it wasn't for me, then this village wouldn't have treated you like this. Its voice was getting lighter and a little higher now. If only it was someone else. If only it didn't have to be you, then you could have lived a normal life. Its voice started sounding higher pitched, almost feminine-like. It's all my fault, and you're suffering for it. Before it knows she could continue, Naruto stopped her. You're a girl? She stopped when she realized her actual voice came out. With a sigh, she nodded to him. Yes, I am Naruto. I have been for my entire life. She looked down in shame almost. That's not important now. What is important is that I'm sorry for all the horrible things I've caused to happen to you because of me being sealed inside you. It's all my fault that they're kicking you out of your home. Naruto stopped his sobbing at the phrase your home. He thought about it for a moment. You know, I used to look in the windows of other people's houses when I was younger. She looked back to him. I remember. I always looked at how the parents would treat their kids with love and compassion. He continued. I wanted something like that. I wanted to feel that warmth and love from others. I was a 5-year-old living on the street with people from this village looking down at and beating me for just existing. He took a few breaths before continuing. I thought at the time that everyone was like that in the world, but then the first time I ever truly left the village and went to Wave, I saw how wrong I was. Those people, Tazuna, Inari, his mother, they all treated me with kindness even before I helped save them from Gato. He looked back up to her, and she was surprised by the look of determination back in his eyes. I think now I really get it. Get what, Naruto? He stood up and wiped away his tears before looking back up to her. That a place where everyone constantly hurts you is no home at all. The fox chuckled a bit before speaking to him again. So what are you going to do, Kit? Naruto smiled up at her and answered. I'm gonna leave this village forever, become stronger than anyone and carve out my own destiny far away from this hell. She smiled at him and stood on her haunches. Naruto got a full look at her as she stood there. Then to atone for the pain I've caused you all your life, I'll do whatever I can to help you, Naruto. He smiled up at her. Thanks. I still don't know what to call you though. She smiled again at her and leaned down. For now, call me Kyubi. With that, Naruto smiled at Kyubi before he was returned to his room. His resolve was strengthened, and he stood up. Looking around his horrible room, Naruto decided it was time. He grabbed a backpack and started to fill it with clothes and equipment for himself before glancing out the window. To his surprise, it was now night time and a full moon was out. He also spotted lanterns and heard people cheering about something. Upon closer inspection, he could tell that word of his banishment must have got out and the villagers were celebrating. That was the last straw. That was when Naruto knew without a shadow of a doubt that this place was never his home. Now in disgust, Naruto decided to pull one last prank on this village for all the suffering and pain they put him through. It took some time and a lot of sneaking around, but Naruto was finally able to set up the explosive tags around his home and fireworks around the festival. Before he lit them, he had a few things he had to do. First was dropping off his headband that Ichiraku gave him. Since he was banished now, he wouldn't need it anymore. He dropped it off at the academy with a note next to it on Ichiraku's desk. Last thing he wanted was to confront his former sensei about this whole thing. Next was the necklace Tsunade gave him. His dream of becoming Hokage died now, so he might as well return this to her desk as well. To his surprise, she wasn't in her office, nor was anyone else. So he left it along with a note as well. Last was seeing his friends one last time, but that was a mistake. He searched for them only to find that a few were actually at the festival. Sakura, Ino, Choji, Shikamaru, Kiba, Shino, Ten, and even Niji and Lee were there. They seemed to be enjoying themselves there at the Fox Festival, unaware that said Fox boy was watching them. That was it. There was no other reason to stay in this place anymore. Naruto gritted his teeth and activated both tags and the fireworks and watched as everyone panicked. It was satisfying to see the angered and confused faces of the people on last time. With that, Naruto left the area and went to the gate. He had no idea where he was going or what he was going to do, but one thing was for sure, he would never return to this village. He would keep his promise to become stronger than anyone, and with Kyuubi's help, he can live free and happy. With that thought in mind, Naruto left the village to make a name for himself and to carve his own destiny. Chapter 2: A Home for Now. Akaya-kuma Red Devil/Demon. It had been 3.5 years after Naruto left the village now, and he had gotten considerably stronger than before. He had discovered that his elemental affinities were wind and water in that time thanks to Kyuubi, and had even learned to master them both. He was very proficient in both now and could even combine the two for more powerful ice techniques. And since he did have a tailed beast inside of him with its own chakra, Naruto was even able to learn the other elements. He started to like using fire, was slowly mastering earth, and was getting the hang of using lightning. He was no master yet by any means in ninjutsu yet, but he was getting closer with each passing day. Genjutsu was something he was really trying to avoid since he wasn't good at it, but Kyuubi convinced him after stating that some of the best ninjas know at least how to cast and fight off genjutsu. She was a really convincing and sometimes demanding teacher to the blonde, yet she was a very good teacher. All those decades and maybe even centuries of experience paid off for Naruto as she taught him. He could now cast a few genjutsus if need be to fool others, and surprisingly enough was pretty great at it. Taijutsu was his favorite part of training. That was when he got to see Kyuubi's human-like form and spar with her. She would take the form of a fairly tall, slender woman that was both curvy and muscular at the same time. Her skin was a smooth tan color while she had piercing red eyes, short crimson hair that was straight, had her fox ears sticking out, and her 9 tails just above her firm bottom. She would usually wear a kimono that was pretty loose for mobility. The kimono was a deep red color that had an orange fox pattern on the back of it. It was simple and gave her room to maneuver around in. The reason why Naruto liked this part of the training was because he got to see her true form and fight her multiple different styles. She knew many different styles and would spend at least a week training him with one style at a time. It was very helpful that they both knew the shadow clone technique when Naruto really wanted to know more styles. During Naruto's travels, he decided to head west. During those travels, he found himself caught in an ongoing war between Kyuzugakyur and Amagekyur. It was there that he experienced his first kill. An Ain ninja who was attacking an innocent villager in Kusa. Naruto hesitated when taking him down with a kunai through the head. When he saved that little girl and saw many ninja on both sides witness it, he knew that he was now a part of this war. It was his time in Kusa where he learned kenjutsu from a ninja who was also a former samurai. With his help and Kyuubi's, Naruto was easily able to master kenjutsu and help Kusa win the war with aim in a mere year. He wields a blade that he found during a raid in Amagekyur. The blade is a blood-red katana with a black handle and guard. That wasn't the strange thing. The strange thing about it was the fact that in the handle was an eye. Not just a normal eye, but a blood-red, demonic eye. Kyuubi informed him that this sword was indeed one of the rarest blades in the world, a demon blade. Because of her own demonic chakra, Naruto was able to wield it with no problem. He named it Akaya-kuma. After he helped ended the war and was a hero to the people of Kusa, he left to continue his journey for true strength. Not wanting everyone to know that it was Naruto Uzumaki that helped ended the war and became so powerful in such a short time, Naruto insisted that he be referred to by a different name. And thus he became the White Fox. The name was mainly because of the choice mask he wore when in aim, a white fox mask with piercing, dead white eyes. The bingo book marked him down as an A-ranked ninja. That was a while ago, and now Naruto was moving through a forest area. He was wearing a dark orange long-sleeved shirt with a white undershirt, and black cargo pants along with black ninja sandals. He had enjoyed taking these long walks in the forest, and since he really didn't have a place to stay, he made camp out here. He set up his tent, and cooked up some rabbits he caught a while ago before laying down and watching the night sky. It was a clear, starry night out tonight, and it was calm times like these that really made Naruto wonder just how different his life would have been if he had left the village a long time ago. He's 16 now and at least a very high jounin now, but he couldn't help but wonder just how his progress as a ninja would be if he were still in Konoha. He sighed before deciding to call it a night for now. As he slept, his mind drifted and he was having his recurrent nightmare again. The one about his days back in Konoha as a kid and how the people would mistreat him. Every beating, every bit of abuse, every break-in, every rape, every torture playing out in a perfect image in the teen's mind. Surprisingly enough though, Naruto had grown used to the nightmares now. Kyubi would always talk to him to make him feel better and soothe his mind. She was very caring of him, a trait Naruto never would think that the most powerful and feared demon would be like. The next morning Naruto woke up when he heard some commotion not too far away from him. He decided to check it out after quickly getting dressed as he heard screams of a few girls. Leaving quickly, Naruto saw around 5 girls around his age and a child around 8 or 9 running away from several male bandits. The bandits had lust-filled eyes directed towards the 5 and Naruto could at least see why. The 5 girls were beautiful indeed, but now wasn't the time to gawk. The blonde donned his mask and leapt into action just as one of the bandits grabbed one of the girls. The girl was fairly tall with tan skin and short orange hair. She wore a tattered brown shirt and black shorts and had no shoes on. Her green eyes showed fear as she desperately tried to break out of the man's grip only for him to laugh and slap her, hard. Naruto didn't hesitate. He dropped down right next to the man and before either could react, Naruto had already removed his head from his shoulders. The girl was shocked by this but didn't question why this masked man was saving her. The other 4 girls and the child were surrounded by the rest of the bandits, about 9 of them. They were all visibly terrified with the little girl clinging desperately to one of the girls. "Heh. Looks like our little hunt ends here, fellas," one of the bandits says. "So boss, we still gonna..." He rubbed his crotch with his left hand toward the girls. "Have some fun before we take them back to town?" A big burly bald man wearing a loose outfit walked over and stopped in front of the girls. He grinned until he noticed something. "Wait a minute, wasn't there 6 of them? I only count 5. Another bandit smirks and answers. "One of our guys caught her and is probably having fun with her right now." The other girls visibly paled at hearing their friend's fate. It was an awful thing that these bandits were doing, and all they could do was stay close to one another and pray that someone save them. Almost as if that prayer was answered, before any of the bandits could lay a finger on them, a body fell to the ground next to them. They all easily recognized the body of their comrade and gasped as they saw his head roll over to them. "Who the hell dares to step up to us?" The boss of the group yelled out to the forest, expecting someone to answer. The other men got ready for an attack and spread out a bit. 9 guys, all bandits, no skills at all. Naruto thought to himself as he stood near a bush, watching them all. He smirked behind his mask as the girl was behind him. "This'll be too easy." "What do you dash?" The girl was cut off when she saw the masked man vanish out of thin air. She gasped in shock before looking to the other girls and bandits. The bandits were starting to get a little nervous. It was a bright day out where literally anybody could be seen from both above and all around. Yet they couldn't find whoever it was that was here. Naruto liked this. He enjoyed being stealthy on bandits and low-level nin. The panic and the uneasiness they display always made him smile on the inside. He knew it was a little bit sadistic to play with your prey before ending it, but maybe that was Kyuubi's influence. Naruto decided to pick one off in a loud way to stir up some confusion. He silently went by trees until he was close to one of the bandits. He grabbed the man by the back of his neck and pulled hard. The man let out a high-pitched scream and was pulled into the bushes. The other bandits heard this and saw that the bush now had blood all over it. The bandits were more than disturbed at seeing this but was still a little unfazed. Naruto decided to step it up a notch. He went up a tree and hid for a few seconds before catching 3 of them all with swords of their own. The blonde saw their very poor form and loose grips and shook his head. Deciding to let these men see a real swordsman before they die, Naruto dropped down in the center of them and landed in a crouching position. The 3 were shocked at first, but that changed when they saw this masked man reach for and unsheath his own blade on his back. The 3 yelled out as they rushed the man, but they were easily taken out in a flash. Naruto leapt into the air in the trees before the last 5 showed up. They saw their comrades cut down and started to panic. Naruto had to suppress a chuckle at the last 5 bandits. He decided that now was the best time to really mess with them. He dropped down in front of the 5, causing them all to jump in both shock and then fear. The boss of the group looked at the masked man, or more specifically, his mask, and went wide-eyed. He slowly backed away as he realized just who this person was. "Be boss?" one of the bandits said as he started to tremble at the gaze the masked man was giving them. "What do we do?" their boss started to stutter. "The www White FF Fox." "Oh." Naruto started as he placed his blade on his shoulder and tilted his head slightly. "So you've heard of me? Good. Then maybe you can tell me just what you worthless sacks of garbage were going to do to those girls." One of the bandits didn't know what to do and foolishly charged in out of panic. Naruto dodged his sword slash and swiftly cut the man in half from the waist. The last 4 and the girls saw this and their jaws dropped. "I guess I wasn't clear enough." Naruto started as he wiped his blade on the man's shirt. "So I'll ask nicely one last time. What were you going to do to them?" The boss decided that this job was not worth dying to the infamous White Fox. This was supposed to be a low-level job. Nobody, especially someone from the bingo book, was supposed to stop them. "Look, we were just hired to grab the girls and take them back to their base, okay?" Naruto tilted his head again and pointed his sword to them. This caused the 4 bandits to flinch. "Whose base?" "Just some human traffickers and prostitution rings," the boss said quickly. "We would just get a cut of the profits when we brought them back." "Where?" "Just some village in the Earth country. That's all we know." "So you'll let us go, right?" the boss asked with a small smirk. He thought that if he gave the White Fox some information that what's left of his men would be allowed to live. Unfortunately for him, if this was the Naruto before the war in Kusa, then he might have been right. "When did I ever say that?" the White Fox asked them. They gasped in horror at this and tried to make a break for it. They didn't get far before they started to sink into the earth. Naruto walked over to their sinking forms and crouched down to them as they begged and pleaded with him. "You guys were gonna rape and take advantage of them. I hate people who prey on the weak, but I absolutely loathe rapists. You all have this coming." And just like that, the men were gone and the forest was quiet once more. Naruto sighed out as he had what he needed. He was about to head back to his belongings and then go to Earth Country, but he was stopped by the girls. One was a long-haired blonde with dark eyes and light skin. Another was also a blonde but with short hair and yellow eyes along with her fair skin. The third had dark skin, black hair to her shoulders, and brown eyes. The fourth had blue hair only to the top of her head, fair skin and blue eyes like her hair. The last was the little girl. She had pure white hair and eyes and had pale skin. Naruto turned to them and saw that they were all standing there, staring at him in awe. "So you're the White Fox?" The blue-haired girl started in awe. "You're just as amazing as the rumors in AIM made you out to be." Naruto smiled behind his mask and folded his arms to his chest. "Thanks. Always nice to meet some fans." And who exactly are you all anyway? I'm Akane. The blue-haired girl spoke. My name's Hikari. The black-haired one answered. Hikaru. The orange-haired girl. I'm Toko. The long-haired blonde started, then pointed to the other blonde hiding behind her. And this is Ayako. And this little girl right here is Setsu. Hikaru motioned to the little girl. Setsu looked up at Naruto with wonder and awe in her eyes. She was truly mesmerized by how he saved them, and what he was about to do. Well, it's nice to meet you girls. Naruto started with a nod to them. I would stay, but I have a base to destroy and some others to hopefully help. Before Naruto even took 2 steps, he was already stopped. A hand on his shirt was what stopped him, and he turned to see that it was actually Setsu that had him. Naruto looked down to her, and saw that she now had a questioning look to her face. You have something inside you, don't you? She asked him. Naruto gasped under his mask as he looked into her eyes. I can sense it. Something dark and powerful inside you. She let him go and reached for the seal on his stomach. Just what exactly is it though, I wonder? Before she could make contact, Naruto grabbed her wrist to stop her. Listen, Setsu. She looked up at him. I don't know how those eyes of yours works, but you should be careful when looking into a person. Setsu went a little wide-eyed when she could no longer look within this person. She looked into his eyes and nodded slowly. So why exactly is the infamous white fox wandering around in a forest? Hikari asked him as she folded her arms just below her impressive bust. I was just minding my own business when I heard all of this. It was good warm-up, but now I'm ready for an actual workout. Naruto turned around to leave before he was stopped again. We can show you where the village is, Hikaru said to him. Naruto turned back to them and tilted his head. We'll show you where, you just have to promise us that you'll leave the leader for all of us. Naruto didn't get that part but nodded anyway. With that, the group led Naruto through Earth Country to a small village that made Naruto growl a bit under his mask. In the village there were men all around with women doing very degrading things for their own amusement. The men would force them to dance in front of them with next to nothing on, force them into a pile of men for an obvious reason, and in some sicker cases beating them with whips. Which one is the leader? He asked the girls that could feel the intense ki seeping out of him. That man right there, Toko said as she pointed down to a nin of some kind. That would make this a lot easier for Naruto to determine who not to kill yet, since the leader was the only ninja down there. Naruto stood up and cracked his neck before looking to the girls. Stay here, and don't move. I'll end this quickly. And before they could say anything, he was gone in a shunshin. They looked down and waited for a while to wonder just what the white fox had in store for the bandits. After a few minutes of waiting, they started to hear screaming as bandits started to be taken down by lightning strikes and fierce winds. They watched as the bandits tried and failed to run away from everything that was happening around them. They were left in a daze of disorientation and confusion as they were all being torn apart by something too fast for them to see. The girls in the village were terrified and some even sickened by what they were seeing. A blur was destroying the bandits that had held them captive for so long, and was doing so in very bloody ways. They watched from inside some of the buildings and even a few of the shacks and cages they were kept in as the massacre continued. All they could see was a white blur of some kind. The only one not touched was the ninja that was trying to flee, only to be stopped with a kunai through his leg. He fell to the ground in pain as the sound of his men's screams slowly started to fade away into silence. He pulled out the kunai and tried to patch himself up, only to be stopped once again from doing anything by a voice. I really should just kill you now. The man looked up only to gasp in horror at who he was seeing. Standing right in front of him was the white fox, a ninja who was said to have killed hundreds of AIM ninja in the War of Kusa and AIM. The same ninja was staring down at him with not a single scratch or speck of blood on his clothes. Now that Naruto was here in front of the ninja, he saw that he was in a sound uniform. This made his blood boil at seeing the same symbol that brought that traitorous Sasuke over to them, and caused his banishment. Naruto had to take a few very deep breaths so he wouldn't just take out a Kai Akuma and send this nin to hell. If it were up to me, I would kill you now and be done with it. Naruto started. But that's not for me to decide now, is it? With that, Naruto turned away from the sound nin, and that was when Setsu and the others came towards him. The nin had no time to prepare for his death, as he was too terrified to really do or say anything. Setsu stood in front of him and knelt closer to his face. The nin tried to swing at her with a kunai in hand, but was stopped by Naruto grabbing his arm and snapping it like a twig. Setsu, no longer distracted, gazed into the man's eyes, and her white eyes turned into a deep black color with white pupils. The nin started to convulse violently, and his eyes rolled completely behind his head. In a matter of seconds he started to foam at the mouth, and then stopped moving at all. Naruto was amazed by whatever Setsu did as her eyes changed back to white. He would have to ask her about it later though, as now a few eyes were steadily focused on him. Naruto looked around for a brief moment, and noticed that every girl was staring at him in both awe and thanks. The ones in cages had been freed and the ones hurt were now being treated as best as they could. Naruto, thinking that his job here was done, decided to take his leave, but before he could, he was stopped by more than a few girls who wanted to thank him. He was just a bit uncomfortable at first, since he really had no clue how to really talk to girls like this, so he just decided to wing it and just be himself. Hours later, nighttime. It took some time, but with a few very healthy and the help of the White Fox's many clones, the dead bodies had been moved away to be burned up. Naruto rather enjoyed helping this village and its residents clean the place up of all the blood bodies. It was nice to get to know some of the girls that would casually speak to him like everything was normal. Some of the repeated questions were of course asked, like where was he from, did he really kill that many nin, and what was his real name. Naruto would answer the first two but would always hesitate when it came to the last one. He debated in his head for all those hours until Kyubi decided to speak for the first time today. You should at least take the mask off, she said to him in a calm tone. You really think so, Kyubi? Naruto asked her, still a little hesitant of it all. Look, they're heavily in your debt for saving them from a life that would only end in either death, or a lust-filled haze they would never escape. Kyubi continued. They won't care who you really are. They would just love to see the face of the one who saved them all and not a mask and title. Naruto sighed as her words made sense to him. You're right, Kyubi. Thanks. Kyubi chuckled a bit before fading from his thoughts to rest again. When she did, Naruto let out a sigh and decided to take off his mask. Before he did, Hikaru found him. Hey there, White Fox. She started in a friendly tone. Look, I don't know if you'll be staying here for a little festival we're having a little later, but you know it would be nice if you at least stayed for it. Naruto put his finger to his masked chin in a thinking pose. Well, I was planning on just wandering around until I found something to do, so sure. I can stay for a bit. Hikaru smiled and nodded to him. Then it's good to have you here, White Fox. No, he said to her, confusing the girl for a bit. That was when he reached for his mask and removed it, revealing himself to her. Hikaru was stunned by how he looked. The spiky blonde hair, the sky blue eyes, and the whiskers adorning his face. He smiled at her, causing the orange-haired girl to blush. Call me Naruto. Chapter 3: Familiar Faces. Several years later. A child was wandering around in town by himself. It didn't bother him in the slightest, though. He walked along a street as his short blonde hair with red tips at the end flowed with the wind. His light red eyes with slitted blue pupils, fairly light skin, and 2 whisker marks on each side of his face, an all too familiar sight to the people in the fairly small village. He wore a black shorts and a dark orange jacket that was open, revealing a white undershirt. The boy had a big toothed smile on his face as he approached a stand on the side of the street he was walking on. He was met by a teenage girl with pale skin and white eyes and hair that reached her mid-back. She turned to the boy and smiled at him as he sat on a stool in front of her stand. Hey there, Boruto-kun, the girl said to the boy now known as Boruto. How have you been? Boruto gave her a little chuckle before answering her. I've been doing just fine, Setsubakin. Just came over to get a new book for Akira. She blows through these things so easily. Hard to believe she's only 5 sometimes. Setsu chuckled under her breath as she went looking through her assortment of books. She had loaned Boruto a few of her books in the past for him to return within a week, but when it came to Akira, that girl would usually finish them within a day. It made her laugh but also ponder just how many of these books has that little girl read by now. Setsu decided to let it go for now and handed Boruto a book on the history of Tsunegakure. Maybe that would keep her busy for more than one day. Boruto thanked one of his many aunts and left the book stand. He went past many of the familiar faces as he was leaving the village area and into the forest. Ever since he was born, he's always had an attraction to the forest where he and his family lived in. His mother may not be as enamored with the forest as both Boruto and Akira are, but she enjoyed watching the two play with their father all the time in the trees. Boruto had always felt at some kind of peace when it came to the treetops that led to and even surrounded his home. It was something that he really couldn't explain, but it just felt right to him. Nature, the animals, the peace it brought about, he just loved it. Same with Akira. As Boruto was moving through the branches to his usual route home, he heard the voice of someone right above him, and knew exactly who it was. "Oanai-chan!" A little girl shouted out as she landed on her brother's back to surprise him. The girl was about half his size with burnt red hair and bright blue eyes. Her skin was a lightly tanned color, and she had one whisker mark on each side of her cheeks. She wore a bright red shirt that came all the way to her ankles, covering her plain shorts, and had on plain sandals. Boruto easily caught his footing and held onto her with ease as he continued on. "Hey there, Akira-chan," Boruto said to her as he continued on. He handed her the book as he was passing by more trees at a fairly decent pace. "Look what I got you from Setsubaken." Akira's face lit up as she saw a new book for her to read. She grabbed it and thanked her brother as he continued on home with her in tow. It took a few minutes, but they finally reached their home. It was a regular-sized house fit for a group of people. It was a white house with a red roof and plants around and below the windows. There was also a small garden on the side of the structure that had some pretty strange fruits and vegetables growing from them. Not too far away from the garden in the forest was a visible river of clear water. In the backyard, there was a clear field that ran for acres on end that sported a few craters courtesy of their mother and father's sparring sessions. Speaking of those two, both Naruto and the two's mother were sitting on a porch near the garden and looking out onto the calm waters. Naruto had changed a bit in these years of a calm life. He let his spiky blonde hair reach a little past the back of his neck and had a white streak on the right side of his head, had 3 seal contracts tattooed on parts of his body and weren't visible to the eye, was taller than before by a foot or so, and had a tattoo of a red fox on the left side of his neck that reached to his left shoulder. He wore a black, long-sleeved sweater and had on orange cargo pants. The mother was none other than the Kyubi herself. After a year or so of training together after saving Hikaru and the others, Kyubi had started to express her feelings toward the blonde. Much to her surprise, he accepted her and admitted to caring for her as well. After they admitted that to each other, Kyubi asked Naruto to call her by her real name, Kurama. Naruto even removed most of the seal to allow her to fully retain her human form and live with him, physically. She didn't look too different from before aside from the tattoo of the yellow fox on the right side of her neck that stretched to her right shoulder. Her crimson hair was longer, and she kept her tails away unless in battle. She wore a plain red dress that went to her ankles and didn't have any shoes on. She was actually laying on Naruto's shoulder and sleeping peacefully. Naruto saw that their children had just returned and shushed them so they wouldn't wake their mother. The two noticed this and quietly went over to them. "Tu-san," Boruto whispered. "We're back, and I got Akira a new book." Naruto smiled at the two as Akira held up the book with much enthusiasm. He gave them a quick thumbs up before motioning them to head inside to get ready for dinner. They nodded and went inside, leaving him with his still asleep wife. With a gentle nudge of his shoulder, he woke her up. "Hey, it's time for dinner," he said softly to her in a slightly deeper voice. Kurama didn't open her eyes and just yawned on his shoulder. "You smell nice," she said in a tired voice. Naruto smirked at the compliment and rubbed her hair and ears. So I've been told. He teased her as he planted his lips on her forehead. Ready to eat? She took her head off his shoulder and opened her red eyes to him. Carry me, she told him in a still tired form. Naruto chuckled a bit under his breath and proceeded to lift her up bridal style. He carried her inside and the family of 4 proceeded to have dinner. Konoha. Things haven't been so well in the Hidden Leaf village for some time now. After Naruto was banished, some of their alliances were torn. Mainly the Wave, Suna, and even some other villages that agreed to an alliance with Konoha because of a certain blonde. They still had allies, but Suna was their main bulk and without them, they were a tad bit vulnerable. Throw in the fact that they banished their own Jinchuriki, and the fear that was felt by other villages was now gone. They found themselves in a war with both Kumogakure and Otogakure, with Amigakure in talks with Kumo in joining to crush the leaf. The war between Konoha and the two have been raging on for years now, with the two steadily gaining ground with each passing day. It really was a shock to most of the village when the last loyal Uchiha had joined Orochimaru and Sound in the effort to destroy the leaf. The council was livid at this betrayal and had placed Sasuke in the bingo book. Also, after Naruto's banishment, Tsunade stepped down as Hokage and left Konoha with Shizen in tow. Kakashi was now placed as 6th Hokage and hasn't had any real authority since. Let's just say that because of the elders in the council, things went from bad to worse for Konoha. Now, Kakashi is now in his office as he looks out to the depressing village that he calls home. Because of the constant threat of invasion, most of the villagers hadn't really been outside lately. The streets were usually barren and a dark cloud hung over the village right now. Kakashi sighed out as he had to figure out a way to boost confidence in the villagers and even the shinobi that stay in the village. He had no idea what to really do now and looked up to the mountainside at the 4th Hokage head. He sighed in disappointment at how much he has shamed himself and failed the village, along with his sensei. A knock on his door brought him out of his thoughts, and he regained his composure. Enter, he said, trying not to have his voice crack. The door opened, and in walked a few familiar faces. Asuma along with his team, and Kurenai along with her team entered. Most of the former genin had now become chunin after all those years and had remained a team in this time of war. Only Shikamaru was a jounin though. The 8 looked to their Hokage as he had a mission for them all that was of the utmost importance. As you all know, we are at war with Kumo and Oto. He started as he clasped his hands together and placed them on the desk. We are at a disadvantage, and with both Orochimaru and Sasuke and Th Frey, we're going to need more allies. If AIM joins those two, then without stronger reinforcements, Konoha, our home, will fall. There was a grim tone in the room after hearing this. Now I'm sending you all to Earth Country to find us more allies. I've even heard rumors of the infamous White Fox being somewhere in Earth. If you can convince him to join us, then AIM will not join Kumo and Oto. There was a bit of a gasp in the room at the mention of the White Fox. Most had read the reports on the war between AIM and Kusa all those years ago and how one man, or by some reports a true demon, had torn apart AIM with the greatest of ease. The shinobi of AIM now made it apparent that if you spot the White Fox, all you should do at that point is pray he makes your death quick. Hokage-sama. Ino started. Are you sure that the White Fox would even help us? Kakashi shook his head in disappointment. I highly doubt it, but if you all do find him, attempt to convince him as best as you can. I don't care of the method, just get him and others to aid us in this time of war. Understood? Understood, Hokage-sama. Asuma started. So when do we leave? In 2 hours. Good luck to you all. This mission should take at least 2 weeks at most, Kakashi stated to them. They left his office and prepared for a trip to Earth Country. 2 hours later, outside of Konoha, the group of 8 were making their way to Earth Country now and had broken into conversation. So, what do y'all think about this whole thing? Kiba asked his friends as the senseis were up ahead of them. If you want my honest opinion, Kiba, Shikamaru started, I think this is going to be a little troublesome. What makes you say that? Ino asked her teammate. For one, we have to head over to Earth Country in the hopes that we can secure an alliance to help in the war, and you all know how IWA Nin feel towards the Leaf. So for the most part, we're mainly tasked with finding this White Fox guy to take aim out of the equation. Shikamaru continued. There's also another reason the Hokage sent us all out to Earth, but it's just a theory for now. And what exactly would that be? Choji asked his best friend. There was a rumor that Naruto is somewhere in Earth Country. Shikamaru answered him. This got a mixture of reactions from everyone. Hinata had all but stumbled off of the tree she was moving through at the name of the man she loved. Shino went a little wide-eyed at this information. Choji and Ino gasped, and Kiba simply held his head down. After that night of his banishment, most of them went to that festival. They had no idea of what it was about until the fireworks and Naruto's apartment going up in flames. They didn't even know of his banishment until that happened. After the explosion, they found out from one of the Umbu that Naruto did see them at the festival. He probably thought they were also celebrating his banishment, and that made most of the group feel horrible. So if Naruto is somewhere in Earth, Shikamaru continued, then we have to bring him back, no matter what. Chapter 4, Reunion. A week later. Naruto had been taking a walk with his family to the village for some groceries. Since practically everyone there knew him, they were all greeted by the people of the village. It wasn't a known thing about Kurama being the nine-tailed fox, so she mainly received fairly normal looks from everyone. After what Naruto did for the people of the small village years ago, the entire place got a major overhaul. It wasn't big enough to be considered a large village by any standards, but it was big enough to house every single woman that was involved in what happened years ago. Akira was on top of her father's shoulders reading her newest book on musical instruments, while Boruto was running around. He always had so much energy, probably due to the fact that he had so much of Kurama's and Naruto's chakra in his body. Oddly enough, he always had a ton of energy in himself because of this. Kurama was holding on to Naruto's hand as they made their way through the village to gather groceries. As they were doing that, Boruto had run off a lot further from his family. Both Naruto and Kurama weren't all that worried since he knew his way around and everyone knew him, so there was really nothing to worry about. Boruto had decided to run along into the forest once again and have some fun while the rest of his family was back in the village. He was leaping from tree to tree, going higher and higher and higher till he reached the very top. When he was there, he stood on a large protruding branch and looked out to the distance. Boruto always wondered what exactly was out there further beyond Earth Country. Akira would tell him of other villages and completely different places from the books she read, but there was a difference between hearing about that from a book and actually seeing it for yourself. As Boruto looked out in the distance, though, he was unaware that he was being watched. Two men dressed in dark ninja clothes were on another tree and were passing by when they saw the kid. The two ninja were Kumo-nin and looked a little battered and bruised from their near-broken appearance. "You see that kid?" one of them said to the other. He had a few nasty cuts along his body and for some reason, deep bite marks from some kind of large creature. "Yeah." That one grunts out. He's several deep cuts on his arms and back, yet somehow he was still able to move around. "If there's a kid here, then that means there's a village we can lie low in." "Good. Pretty sure we lost those ninjas. Still can't believe they found out we were trying to expand to Earth." The first spoke. "I'll grab the kid and get him to show us where the village is. When we heal up, we bring more men to that village to subjugate it as ours. We'll need the outpost." As he was saying this, though, I heard a rustling behind them. As quickly as they possibly could, they leapt off of the branch toward the boy just as a large dog and a teen leapt at them. The dog was massive as it had tried and failed to snap its powerful jaws on one of the ninja. Both Kumo ninja tensed up and decided to try and throw kunai at the beast and its master, only for a wall of flies to block the attack. That's when they saw the rest of the Konoha nin appear from the other trees. Thinking quickly, the nin that had the deep bite mark threw a smoke bomb to the group. This did nothing as the big dog pounced onto the other man, teeth at his neck. "Ha ha! Great job, Akamaru!" Kiba yelled out, only to realize that the other nin was gone. "Where did he dash?" Choji started before Akamaru growled above them. They all looked up to see the man holding a boy that looked surprisingly similar to someone else they were looking for. They all froze when they saw the boy, especially Hinata. His blonde hair, even though it had red tips in the ends, and whisker marks reminded them all of Naruto. The Kumo-nin had his arm wrapped around Boruto's neck and held up a kunai to his red eyes. That's when he started to snicker a bit. I'm walking out of here. Don't follow me, Konoha scum, or the brat dies. None of the Konoha ninja moved a muscle as they didn't want to hit the boy that could possibly know where Naruto is. Or maybe that was Naruto in a henge. But if that were the case, then why isn't he fighting back? Dude, you're in deep trouble when my 2-sen shows up! Boruto yelled out, shocking the group even further. They started to think that maybe his father was Naruto, but the Kumo-nin didn't care as he was about to stab the boy in the eye. Before anyone could do anything to stop him though, a blur passed through them and held the Kumo-nin by the throat. He dropped Boruto and the boy landed on a branch not too far away. The Kumo-nin was wheezing heavily as the figure dressed in dark pants, a white shirt, and plain sandals held him with a viscous death grip. The group was now in absolute shock as they had found their old friend from so long ago. The blonde hair was still the same, he was taller now, and the girls were blushing at how his ripped muscles were visible as his shirt hugged him tightly. Surprisingly enough, even Kurenai blushed at him. Not surprisingly enough, both Hinata and Ino nearly had nosebleeds looking at him. Boruto. Naruto spoke to his son, getting the boy's attention. Are you okay? Boruto gave him a thumbs up and a big toothed grin. Naruto mimicked said grin before turning serious and looking to the Kumo-nin that was nearly passed out in his clutches. Naruto held him for a few more seconds before dropping him and letting gravity do its work. The Kumo-nin fell harshly through branches all the way to the ground floor. Wow, 2-san! Boruto started as he and Naruto looked down to where the nin hit. That was awesome! Naruto ruffled up his son's hair before hearing his name being called from behind him. Naruto-kun? Hinata called out softly. Naruto turned and saw the 8 standing there, dumbstruck by his mere presence. He hadn't paid them any mind and was simply more concerned for his son than anything else. So it came as a real shocker when Naruto saw them all there in front of him after nearly all these years. Huh? He started hesitantly. Hey guys. Chapter 5, Unpleasant Meeting. After Naruto had dealt with the Kumo-nin and checked on his son, he turned at the sound of his name being called by a familiar voice. To his slight surprise, the voice that his name came from just so happened to be one of his old former classmates from back when he was a kid. As he looked to her and the rest of the Konoha-nin he hadn't seen or thought of in years, he took the time to get a good look of them all. The former genin that he once knew had grown quite a bit now, but the general reaction to seeing him was the same for everyone right now. Shock. To Naruto, though, he really didn't have much of a reaction to them. Instead of saying anything else, Naruto just placed a hand on Boruto's shoulder and both father and son simply vanished. The Konoha group were all stunned by what he had just did and quickly, Asuma ordered everyone to find Naruto. As he gave that order and everyone scattered, thought were going a mile a minute throughout their minds. Who was that child? Has he been here the whole time? What has he been up to all these years? Just how strong and fast has he gotten to be able to move like that? But the most important question was mainly from Hinata as a realization hit her. If that boy is Naruto-kun's father, then who was the whore that has stolen my dream of being with my Naruto-kun away? She started off shocked and stunned, but with that constant thought, the shock slowly turned into rage. Rage towards whoever the whore was that stole Naruto from her, and her dream of bearing his children. With Shikamaru, he knew he wasn't fast enough to keep up with Naruto. That speed far exceeded any of them. Maybe if they had Lee and his restraints were taken off and if he opened one of a few of his gates, then he could possibly catch up with Naruto. Shikamaru had already assessed long before they got into Earth Country that most likely if they found Naruto that he would have already moved on. Maybe even started a family and was living peacefully. It seems that his theory was right about a family. If that was true, and if he was living peacefully in a village somewhere, then who were they to take that away from him? Not his friends, that's for certain. Kiba had tried to find Naruto's scent ever since he left the group earlier, but so far nothing. It was almost like his scent was just gone. Kiba and Akamaru stopped at the entrance of a village full of mainly girls, women and some traveling entertainers. The two walked in and were immediately the center of attention. For the village, it wasn't every day you see a ninja, and even rarer when you see a massive dog accompanying said ninja. Kiba and Akamaru ignored the looks and instead focused on finding Naruto, and that boy they assumed was his cub. Despite their superb tracking skills, they found it very difficult to find said blonde in this village. It was almost like his scent was lingering everywhere, and confused the two to no end. Before they could really continue with their so far fruitless search, Asuma and Ino appeared next to the two. "You find him yet, Kiba?" Ino asked the Inuzuka. "Nothing," Kiba answered her. "It's almost like he's been everywhere around her too many times for me Akamaru to count." "Well, if that's the case," Asuma started as he walked over to a woman working at a stand. "Excuse me, but have you seen someone with blonde hair walking around with a child that has nearly the same blonde hair?" Asuma wanted to keep his description vague to this civilian. Unfortunately for him and the rest, his vagueness wasn't really too great comparatively speaking. "Oh, you mean Naruto and his son Boruto?" the woman says to him, surprising the jounin. "Actually, yes, I have. They went back to their home just in that direction in the forest." She pointed to the direction of Naruto's house and smiled to the ninja. "Thank you," Asuma said as he bowed to her. He and his two students went ahead and ran in the direction Naruto's house was in. They were having a hard time though, as the forest was very thick, and it would be almost too easy for anyone to get lost here. Fortunately for them, they leapt into the trees and got a better viewing of the area. Off in the distance, they saw a white house with plants all around and a clearly visible lake not too far away from it. "There," Asuma said to the two, urging them to move even faster. Just as they landed in a clearing in front of the house, they saw both Naruto and the child now named Boruto to them heading towards the front door. "Naruto!" Kiba yelled out to the blonde. Naruto gave a sigh and turned to the three in front of his house. He looked to them with an impassive look that made both Kiba and Ino's hearts sink a bit. He crossed his arms as he looked at them and kept his eyes on the group while Boruto simply stood there, watching. Before anyone else could say anything, the others appeared next to Ino, Kiba and Asuma. They all got a good look at Naruto as he put his hands in his pockets to look at them all. The group, although excited to see their long-lost friend, were a little heartbroken at the impassive glare he was giving them. Hinata took a step forward to speak to her Naruto-kun when the front door opened to reveal a slender woman with tan skin and long crimson hair and eyes. She looked to her husband and son before seeing the Konoha ninja in front of them. Kurama had to keep up her facade as a normal woman for obvious reasons and had to look shocked or troubled seeing the ninjas here, but in all honesty she was grinning devilishly in her mind. Which, since both their minds are linked anyway, showed to Naruto, who had to stifle a laugh. Kurama saw the Hyuga standing in front of the group with a truly shocked and horrified look to her face and had to try even harder not to grin at the girl in victory of claiming her mate for herself. "Naruto-kun," Kurama started in a sweet and innocently fake tone that didn't really trick anyone. "What's going on out here?" Naruto sighed again as he answered her. "Nothing. Just the past trying to catch up to me, nothing more." "Naruto." Asuma started as he stepped past the still stunned Hinata. He took a step onto the porch and immediately regretted it when he felt a massive amount of killer intent hitting him like a ton of bricks. He felt himself ready to fall to his knees if he stayed any closer to the house, so he moved away and the pressure was gone. Asuma stared at the blonde with wide eyes as he started to breathe heavily. "I don't know why all of you are doing here when you have a war to fight, or how you found me, but here's some advice." Naruto turned away from them while ushering his family back inside. He turned his head and the glare he gave them sent a bone-chilling shiver through their spines. "Leave, and don't come back." Before they could say anything, Naruto shut the door and they felt a very powerful release of killing intent crashing down onto them. Only this one felt different to Asuma. He paled. Naruto's killing intent was just heavy and breathtaking, but this felt like death itself was trying desperately to grasp at you and drag to the fiery depths of the afterlife. The others felt this feeling and for a brief moment, saw something that made them know true fear. When they looked up, the sky was a blood red and there was screams coming from all directions. Blood was everywhere around the group as they could see countless bodies lying at their feet. Kumo Nin, Aim Nin, Oto Nin, Konoha Nin, themselves, lying dead in some of the most gruesome ways imaginable. They all paled and turned to leave, but before they did, the last thing they saw near the house was the Kyubi no Kitsune itself standing tall over the dead. It looked to them and bared its razor-sharp and bloody teeth in a snarly grin and spoke one word to them all that made more than a few pass out from the sheer force of the voice. "Run!" And just like that, everything went back to normal. There were no bodies, no blood, the sky was clear once more and Naruto's house was the exact same as before. All 8 ninja, students and senseis alike, felt cold at the sight of the calm and peaceful house and scenery around it. So cold that they all left out of fear for whatever that powerful genjutsu was. A few like Shikamaru and Kurenai had one similar thought. When did Naruto learn such a powerful genjutsu? When they made their way back into the small village area, panting and feeling slightly at ease, they stopped in front of a book stand where a white-haired girl saw where they came from. "Oh, you must all be friends of Naruto-san," she said to the group with a soft smile. They looked to her and saw how calm she was. Was that genjutsu stretched out and nobody here affected, or was it simply placed onto the group? "You know him?" Kiba asked, still a little shaken to the core from the genjutsu. "Of course," she continued on. "Everyone knows Naruto-san. He's the one that saved us all years ago." "Saved you all?" Asuma asked with a questioning look. Setsu dropped her smile for a moment, but regained it to tell them the story. "Well, years ago, most of everyone in this village was involved in a human trafficking and prostitution ring run by bandits and a ninja. A few of us, myself included, managed to escape the camp, but we didn't make it too far before we were surrounded. That was Naruto-san showed up and slaughtered the bandits along with freeing the rest of us in this village. He showed no mercy to them and even let myself deal with the leader. I think he said something about him being a sound nin." The group went wide-eyed as Setsu continued. "Anyway, after that Naruto-san decided to stay here after taking off that mask and raised a family." "Mask?" Shino started. "What mask?" Setsu looked a little confused for a moment before seeing the looks on the Konoha nin's faces. She smirked a bit, a very interested gleam to her white eyes, before answering them. "Well, he used to be the White Fox beforehand." To say that the group of Konoha ninja were flabbergasted and shocked was an understatement. How could the number 1 hyperactive, knucklehead ninja in Konoha become the infamous and ruthless White Fox that all of AIM was terrified of? The thought alone was completely ludicrous. Wasn't it? Could Naruto really change that drastically after being banished? As the group pondered this, Setsu had a very dark look adorning her smirk. A look that made the Konoha group question just how much she knew or why she was looking at them like this. Finally, she decided to answer their concerns. "I may not know much about Naruto-san's past, but one thing he told me that I found very interesting is his very strong disdain for the village hidden in the leaves." She pointed to the group's Hittites. "And judging from all of you wearing the same symbol and the fact that you all ran from his home, I take it he didn't enjoy your company." The tone in her voice was one of intentional insult to the Konoha group. They continued to look onto Setsu and then turned back to the path that led to Naruto's house. "So he has a family now?" Choji asked her as he too tried to regain himself to no avail. "Yes," Setsu answered. "I have no idea where his wife came from, but he has 2 children. A son and his younger daughter." Setsu stifled a chuckle before continuing. "You all should head back to your village. I highly doubt that Naruto-san will help you with your war." The group turned to Setsu in shock only to see that she was no longer there. After that, the group had decided that heading back was probably the best idea. They walked away from the path and out of the village, all the while trying to regain some form of composure from the genjutsu, and the realization that Naruto Uzumaki was indeed the White Fox. Back at Naruto's home, Naruto had to fight off the urge to punch a hole in the wall. One was because he didn't want his children to see this side of him, and two because Kurama would kill him if he did anything to their home out of anger. He sat down on a couch and tried his hardest not to think about what just happened today. Just as he was closed his eyes, he felt the hand of his wife on his shoulder. He opened his eyes and saw her staring back into his, worry clearly visible in those crimson eyes. "You okay?" she asked him in a soft tone. Naruto smiled at her and cupped her face with his hand to bring her closer. He planted a gentle kiss onto her lips and brought her down to sit next to him. "Yeah," he whispered to her. "I'm okay. As long as I have you guys, I'll never go back there." "Really?" Akira asked as she sat next her father and looked up at him with pleading eyes. "You promise you won't go back there, Otosan?" Boruto sat next to his younger sister, nodding his head in determination at her words. It brought a smile to Naruto's face as he hugged his little girl, and in turn she hugged back. "You don't have to worry about me, guys," Naruto said to them. "I plan on staying here for a long time." Konoha, a few days later. The 8 Konoha ninja had finally made it back to Konoha. It took a full 2 days for the shock and after effect of the genjutsu to wear off, but they were finally back home. They quickly made their way back to the Hokage's office to inform him of what they had discovered in Earth Country, only to see Sakura and Team Guy as well. Kakashi was slightly relieved to see them return and was in heavy anticipation of what news they had. "I take it you all have news for me?" Kakashi asked them in a jovial tone, hiding his tiredness and frustration at the council. Asuma stepped forward. "Hokage-sama, we found Naruto." The mere news surprised the Hokage, Team Guy and especially Sakura. When Naruto's banishment was announced, she broke down. She had lost both of her teammates in the span of 1 week and was now a part of a newly formed Team 7 with a new sensei, and everything. It wasn't the same in Konoha for her without Naruto. She perked up at his name but then saw the hurt faces of her fellow ninja and her heart sank a bit. "Where is he then? Is he outside waiting or dash?" She was cut off by Kurenai. "He's still in Earth Country in a small village. He has a family and is living peacefully with no intention of coming back." Kurenai had to turn her head away from the broken look on Sakura's face hearing this news. "He's also the White Fox," Shikamaru said to the still stunned Kakashi. This got the intended reaction as everyone in the room not on Team Asuma or Kurenai looked to the Nara clan member. "Someone in the village told us everything about how he saved the villagers from bandits and a sound ninja years ago as the White Fox. Now he lives there with his wife and children. Naruto-kun is married?" Lee asked them in surprise. Shikamaru nodded to Lee and that was when Kakashi sighed out loud. Everyone else, minus Sakura who was still processing all of this, turned to their leader. "The council is not gonna be happy about this." Council meeting room. And sure enough they weren't. "How could that demon brat deny helping us? He should be grateful for all we've done for him. There's no way that monster is a hero to anyone. If anything, he should be begging us all to come back here. Damn that demon to exactly where he belongs. In hell. Enough!" Kakashi shouted out to the civilian council. He had had enough of their bickering and would not stand for them calling out his former student-turned-war hero. "You all claim all of this when it was all of you that had him banished in the first place. This is your penance for your arrogance and selfishness, and the village will suffer because of all of you." Kakashi's words had the effect on the shinobi side of the council, but not so much on the civilians. Unfortunately for them all, a certain bandaged-up elder had other thoughts. After the meeting, Danzo sat in his chambers, seething in rage at how his plans were in shambles now. He needed Naruto to be banished so he could coerce the boy in joining his side, but those plans changed when his root Anbu couldn't find him anywhere. It was almost as if he dropped off the face of the planet. Now that it was revealed to him that the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Kitsune, the most powerful tailed beast and demon in history, but he was also the very brutal and infamous White Fox. This just went from bad to worse for the man, as he had to come up with some plan to use the boy-turned-teen into his weapon for Konoha. That was when a sadistic plan came to his mind. Sigh. He spoke, and the pale teen Root Umbu appeared in a kneeling pose. Hi, Danzo-sama? Sai responded with no emotion. I'm going to need you and a few more of my root to head to Earth Country. Danzo noticed Sai raise his head in a questioning way. I'll need that Jinchuriki for my plans to come to fruition. And if he won't come willingly, he stood and gave a sinister grin, then we'll have to see how much he truly loves those precious children of his. Unbeknownst to Danzo, though, there was a small snake just outside his room, and it slithered away to relay a very interesting message to its master. Orochimaru. Chapter 6. Heads Will Roll. Orochimaru's Base. Deep within the tunnels underneath Sound, a snake slithers as quickly as it can back to its master. As the snake slithered, it passed a certain room and froze out of fear. It turned its head and saw a dark figure walking slowly towards it. Before the figure could get any closer, a new voice made its presence known. Ah, my spy has returned earlier than expected. The voice caught both the snake and the figure's attention. They turned to see the snake Sannin slowly walking towards them with that ever-present grin plastered on his face. And what exactly was so important that you directly disobeyed my orders to return within a month's time? It has only been a week. Despite his calm demeanor, Orochimaru was actually not pleased with this. The snake answered quickly with a few hisses, and the figure noticed that Orochimaru was getting one of his very interested glares. The figure kept listening and continued to watch as the Sannin began to chuckle under his breath for a few seconds before going on a full-on cackle. So, what did it say? The figure asked, slightly irritated. Orochimaru stopped his cackle for a few moments to address him with a sinister smile. Why, he was just telling me of your old teammate having been found. Sasuke. Sasuke stepped out of the shadows and gave a slight furrow of his brow. The mere mention of that dope's name made his blood boil. It wasn't enough that move Naruto used all those years ago at the Valley of the End nearly trumped his Chidori, but the fact that he nearly beat Sasuke with said move. Sasuke snickered when he had heard of his old rival's banishment, and assumed that he would simply crawl under a bridge and die a slow and painful life with no one. At the time, though, after Naruto's banishment, the blonde simply vanished from the ninja world. This is the first bit of information on the blonde since that day. Sasuke started with an arrogant smirk. So? Why exactly did this make you laugh like a lunatic? The last Uchiha crossed his arms and leaned onto the door frame. Orochimaru kept his smirk even with the pseudo-insult and answered him. It seems that Danzo has forgotten his place, and knows the whereabouts of the Uzumaki. He's sending his Root Umbu to get the boy's attention, and the only way to do that is to apparently snag his children. At that point, Sasuke's eyes went wide before he clenched his teeth in anger. How? How could that dobe have children? How could he find some form of happiness after his banishment? The very thought of it all made Sasuke's Sharingan flare up with rage. And what exactly do you plan on doing about this? Sasuke said through gritted teeth. Orochimaru's grin grew as he said his next words. Well, it would be very useful to my own plans if the boy were to be dealt with. And I think those little children of his would make excellent leverage as well. Sasuke gained a bit of a devious and evil grin as he easily put together what the Sannin was asking him to do. A few days later, Naruto was walking with Akira to a clearing not too far away from his home. She had been pestering him about how her eyes keep changing to red ever since those Konoha nin came by. Instead of asking her mother to explain it all, she kept pestering her father to spend even more time with him. In the back of his mind, Naruto figured out why his daughter was staying close to him so much. In her mind, she wanted her father to stay with her, and her brother and mother forever like he promised. Naruto didn't mind though. He thought seeing her act like this was absolutely cute in a way. They made their way to a clearing and Naruto sat down next to a tree and motioned for Akira to sit next to him. She did a little pout before sitting on his lap with her arms crossed. She was still pouting as they both sat under the tree to watch the gentle breeze brush through the grass. Naruto had a smile on his face as he watched, but the smile went away slightly as he saw the look on his daughter's face. She was looking down with a slightly worried look to her face. Naruto saw that, and could feel that she was getting teary-eyed. With a sigh, Naruto spoke to her in a gentle tone while stroking her beautiful hair. "This wasn't about asking me about you eyes, was it, Akira?" Akira stayed quiet as she curled herself closer to her father. Naruto could tell that she was feeling some kind of sorrow ever since that day. "Akira," Naruto started as he held her soothingly. "Do you see that out there?" Akira, at first, didn't look up to see whatever it was her father wanted her to see. After a few seconds and sniffling a bit, she looked up to her father's smiling face, and she gave a tiny smile. Naruto pointed out to the open field and Akira looked out only to go wide-eyed at the sight. In front of her was an amazingly beautiful sight of the land. Peaceful valley of lush greens that stretched as far as the eye could see towards the forest. A spectacle that made Akira nearly forget just what she was on the verge of tears for. She looked out to the still gentle wind moving the grass and the leaves falling to the earth around them. It was a truly magnificent sight to behold. "Akira!" Naruto started to her, as he held her in his arms. She looked up to see a calm grin on her father's face as he continued. "Have you ever wondered why me and your Ka-san came here?" Akira shook her head. "No. It was because we looked to this place and saw something that we had both been craving for a long time," Naruto answered as he looked out to the valley with a smile. "What exactly, Too-san?" Akira asked him. "A chance to start over," Naruto answered as he continued to look out. "A chance to live without having to worry about our past or wallow in our failures. A chance to do something that we both wanted for so long. A family." He said that last part as he looked down to Akira, who started to have tears in her eyes. Naruto cupped her face with both hands and wiped away her tears as he continued. "You and Boruto are my world. Your Ka-san is the woman I love with all my heart. And I will never let anything stand between me and you three. I love all of you, I love this place, I love our home, and I wouldn't trade any of it for the world, Akira. Okay?" Akira got misty-eyed but nodded to her father slowly before throwing herself on him. She hugged her father tightly while sobbing into his chest. Naruto simply hugged her back and stroked her hair while cooing into her ears. They stayed like this for a few minutes until Akira suddenly stopped crying at this point, and raised her head up to meet his eyes. Naruto was taken aback a little when he could see the resolve and determination in those bright blue eyes. Sure, they had tears in the sides of them that just made her look too cute, but determined nonetheless. "Then can I get just as strong as you too, San?" she asked him, surprising the blonde father for a moment before he smiled at her. "Of course you can, Akira," he said to her as he rubbed her head playfully, earning a big-toothed smile from her. "Me and your mom will even train you if you want. There are some things that we have to teach you any dash." Before Naruto could finish his sentence, Naruto grabbed Akira and dodged a few shuriken that came from the forest shadows. The shuriken kept coming and Naruto kept dodging with ease despite Akira squirming from fear. "Akira," Naruto started in a stern tone that caught his daughter's attention. "It's okay. I've got you." The mere smirk on her father's face was enough to reassure her as he landed and dodged another wave of shuriken. He continued to dodge until one almost came at his daughter. That was the wrong move. Naruto caught the shuriken mere inches from a strand of Akira's hair and threw it at its attacker almost too fast for said attacker to dodge. The attacker fell to the ground from a tree and Naruto saw that it was an umbu from Konoha. More precisely, a root umbu. The shuriken had went cleanly through the umbu's mask and through his skull cleanly. Before Naruto could say anything else, there were at least 20 or so root umbu surrounding him. They all bore white masks of different animals, but all wore the same black cloaks. "Naruto Uzumaki," one of the root, a man in a falcon mask, spoke as he stepped forward. "Our mission is to ensure your cooperation to Konoha for the war between us and our enemies. Will you submit and come with us peacefully?" Naruto set Akira down as he looked around for an opening. Akira was clinging to his pants leg out of fear for these men. She had never seen ninja before aside from the Konoha group that came by and a few passerby that were very friendly to the village. This was different though. Even with her father here to reassure her, it was still scary for her to be surrounded by all these masked ninja. I already gave the last bunch of Konoha ninja my answer, Naruto said to the falcon masked Root. My answer remains the same even if you attempt to attack me. Now leave, or I'll ensure none of you do. The Root got into a readied stance and prepared to attack. Unbeknownst to Naruto, their true objective is to distract him while Sai and a few others attempt to capture one of his other child. With Sai could tell that his comrades were about to deal with Naruto directly. When Sai was assigned this task, he knew that Naruto, being the infamous White Fox, would prove an interesting match, but once Danzo told him to simply retrieve one of the children as leverage, well, that idea to face off against Naruto went away. Sai and a few others arrived at the house that was reported by Asuma a few days ago. One of the Root not wearing a mask used a wood-style jutsu to break the door's hinges quietly as to not draw in any attention. Once the door was open, they went inside in search of a child. They weren't concerned for the wife and had no orders in dealing with her whatsoever. So if and when they run into her, they'll most likely have to subdue or injure her to get Naruto's attention. Hey! A young voice came from the group of four's right. They turned to see a young boy in a pair of orange shorts and a white shirt standing there looking at them with a bit of anger to his face. Who the heck are you guys, and what are you doing in our house? Boruto yelled out to them. Target acquired, Sai said as he disappeared behind the boy to deliver a chop to his neck. Only when he reached, a hand grabbed his wrist and squeezed tightly, causing a loud snap sound. Sai gasped in pain but held off on other emotions as he gritted his teeth. I don't know who you are, nor do I care. A feminine voice came out, only it sent chills down the Root's spines. But you signed your own death warrants when you decided to even lay your eyes on my son. She was dressed in a long black dress with red trims on the ends and sleeves. Kurama's eyes burned with anger as she flung the pale Root right at his comrades with incredible force. Sai crashed into the three and they were sent flying out of the house. All right, Ka-san! Boruto excitedly yelled out as he raised his fist in the air. Kurama simply grinned and shook her head to her son's antics. Stay inside, Boruto. I'm gonna take care of these Konoha fools. Boruto nodded to shook his head excitedly as he would see the rare occurrences of seeing his mother in action. He would catch glimpses of her and his father sparring, but never seriously enough to really be called a serious fight. So this would be very cool to watch for the young blonde. Kurama stepped out and smirked at the four as they stood up to take defensive positions. Sai, despite only having the use of one arm, pulled out a scroll and a brush. He started to write in the scroll with his teeth, and a few animals, made of ink, came rushing towards Kurama. She didn't even flinch as all she did was flare a very small portion of her ki to cause the ink to melt from the heat. The four were beyond surprised to see this. But before they could say or do any more, Kurama was already next to them in a burst of speed they couldn't even see. She delivered a powerful kick to Sai's already broken hand and shattered the rest of his arm, sending him flying away from them. The man without a mask went wide-eyed and leapt back as he saw the woman reach for a short sword just under her dress. The man without a mask watched through his brown hair as his two other comrades were beheaded with such veracity. Damn! He said as he went through a few hand seals and was about to say his jutsu, but that was until the woman turned to him with those burning red eyes. He froze as he started to see his death play out in front of him in brutal and inhumane ways. He froze as he continued to be ensnared in this genjutsu that was far too advanced to be done by any ordinary person. Who was this woman? Just who in the hell did Naruto Uzumaki marry? Before he could think any more, Kurama walked over to him slowly. She knew she could have ended this battle in many different ways, but she also knew that if she revealed too much, then that would possibly endanger her family. Instead of just killing these Konoha scumbags with one of her own techniques, she just went for kenjutsu instead of her flashy ways of fighting her husband. Kurama approached the man as he was shaking rather violently at this point. She stopped right in front of him and smirked down at his pathetic state before drawing her sword arm back to deliver the killing blow. That was when she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time that stopped her in her tracks. She turned around to her home only to go wide-eyed as she saw a long snake wrapped around her son's entire body. The snake looked right at her and hissed before disappearing with an unconscious Boruto in tow. "Boruto!" Kurama shouted out loudly as she flared her ki to titanic proportions. With Naruto. Naruto was just finishing off the rest of the root umbu at this point. Along with protecting his daughter and having no weapon at first, it was a little bit difficult. He couldn't use any of his major jutsus aside from Kagebushin in fear that he might unintentionally hurt Akira in the process. It took him a little bit of time, but he was able to deal with them quickly. Just as he finished the last of the root, he and his daughter heard the loudest shout that sent shockwaves through the valley they were in. The ki made all the clones poof away and caused Akira to nearly pass out. Naruto held on to her and released his own ki to keep her safe. If Kurama was doing this, then something must have happened to Boruto. Without wasting any time, Naruto picked up Akira and raced over to the house only to see that she had a pale root member by the throat and shouting at him in anger. "Where did you take my son?" She kept shouting, unknowingly killing the guy with her very presence. "Where is he?" Naruto had seen her this angry before, so it wasn't anything too new, but Akira on the other hand was terrified now. She had never seen her mother like this before. The very sight of her anger as tails started to come out of her lower back made the little girl cower behind her father. Naruto noticed this and quickly went to his angered wife to calm her down. "Where is he? Kurama!" Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder, causing her to turn around with the rage still boiling in her eyes. "That's enough! Not until I know where these worthless sacks of flesh took our boy!" She shouted out to him, her tail swirling out of rage. "And do you really want to show this side of you to your daughter?" Naruto said to her softly as he moved for his wife to see Akira shaking out of fear. Kurama went wide-eyed as she saw that fear in Akira's eyes, all directed towards her. She dropped the near-lifeless body and reined in her anger. Her tails retracted in her body, and her ki faded away. The rage in her own eyes replaced with grief and sadness herself. She wanted to say something to her own flesh and chakra, but no words would form as she broke down. Naruto held on to her as he knew this was a side of her that she never wanted any of her children to see, ever. Akira slowly made her way over to her parents, and was about to say something, but that was when another presence made itself known and knocked her out with a chop to the back of her head. Naruto and Kurama quickly turned around and saw, to their shock and rising anger, Sasuke Uchiha standing there with their daughter in tow. He smirked at them before summoning his Sharingan eyes. Before the two could look away, they were now trapped in a genjutsu meant for the Kyuubi itself. A special genjutsu Sasuke had made specifically to incapacitate the beast within Naruto. As the woman fell to ground seizing up slightly, Naruto was struggling to stand to his feet. No matter what, he was going to save his children no matter the cost to himself. "SS Sasuke!" Naruto shouted out as he tried again to stand. "What are you doing here?" he struggled to say. Sasuke smirked to his former rival as he held Akira up. "If you want your children to stay safe, then why don't you come and get them?" He lowered Akira and turned to walk away. Before he did, he looked back at Naruto with the same smirk. "Oh, and if you really want to know where I am with these two brats of yours, ask their leader." He pointed to the man still trapped in the genjutsu, and the pale root member gasping for air before disappearing in a shunshin. Naruto went wide-eyed as he finally was able to break the genjutsu. Just as he did, he went over to Kurama, who was still seizing from the powerful Sharingan genjutsu, and released her from it. She stopped seizing and was unconscious now. Despite her status as the most powerful demon in the world, in her human form genjutsus that are powerful enough to confuse her fox form can incapacitate her in her human form. Naruto let her rest as he heard the root with no mask groan from the released genjutsu on himself. Naruto narrowed his eyes in anger as he turned around to see the man attempt to stand. Naruto walked over towards the man as he stood to his feet on shaky legs. As he looked up to the rather pissed-off blonde, he attempted to use his wood-style jutsu, but was still under the after-effects of Kurama's genjutsu. Naruto wasted no time grabbing the man by the throat and lifting him off the ground. The man tried again to summon a jutsu, but this time, a Naruto clone cut both the man's hands with a kayakuma. The man shrieked in pain as he started to bleed out. The clone handed Naruto his blade before it poofed away. Naruto held the man in a tightening grip as he stared a piercing glare into his eyes. A glare that could make even the mightiest of men tremble in fear. "Who the fuck sent you?" Naruto said in a tone that promised death itself if he didn't get an answer. The man, since he could no longer defend himself with jutsus, answered with a pained tone. "Danzo-sama sent us to ensure your loyalty in the war." Naruto's eyes glowed with even more rage. He remembered Danzo when he was a child and how much the man would talk to his own Umbu about plans for him. A little after his banishment, Naruto figured out that Danzo wanted to use him as some kind of a weapon of sorts for Konoha. Thanks to Kurama, he managed to escape those root Umbu back then. If Danzo knew where Orochimaru was, then that meant that it was time for Naruto to get answers himself. "If he wanted my attention," Naruto started as he lowered his head, "then he's got it." Naruto looked up. "I'm going to get what I need from Danzo. Then I'm going to find Orochimaru and Sasuke. And after I'm done skinning the very flesh from their bones and letting maggots feast on their carcasses as they're buried alive, I'm gonna burn Konoha to the ground." Before the man could attempt to protest, Naruto flicked his wrist and snapped his neck in two with ease. He dropped the man and continued to seethe in anger until he heard muffled groans behind him. He turned to see Kurama slowly stir herself awake, while also seeing off in the distance that last root Umbu groaning as well. Naruto went to his wife and lifted her up slowly. "Naruto?" Kurama slowly said, her eyes showing her pain. "Kurama." Naruto started in a soft tone before looking at her sternly. The look in his eyes held intense resolve as he said his next words to her. "We're going to Konoha." Chapter 7, Only Warning. The next day. Back in Konoha, things have been escalating among the people. Panic was starting to spread from an impending attack, and Kakashi was really starting to dread any and all signs of it all. The people of Konoha were in a state of misery, as they simply counted the days until the attack from Orochimaru and his forces. Their allies abandoning them because of their own decision to banish a tremendous example of hope in their village for a traitor who sided with their enemy. Coupled with the fact that word had spread of Naruto Uzumaki being found and refusing to come back didn't help either. If he would have come back, then their alliances would have been brought back and they could defend or even attack the Odo, Kumo, and now unfortunately for the main ninjas. Kakashi looked to the village as people were desperately trying to pack their things to leave for any safe haven, only to be stopped by various root Umbu. It pained Kakashi when he had no choice but to reinstate Danzo's root Umbu to quell the people's anger. The regular Umbu were spread far too thin with S-class missions such as information gathering and attempted assassinations on high-value targets. Regular Jounin and Chunin were also off the table since they were also preparing as best as they could with the upcoming war at their doorstep. Genin were too inexperienced with this situation, so unfortunately the only choice he had at this point was Danzo. After over an hour of convincing, Kakashi caved and reinstated them. Kakashi looked to the monument of the previous Hokages on display for the whole village to see. He looked to the fourth, his old sensei, and a lone tear fell from his eye. "Sensei." Kakashi started in a low tone as he held his head down. "I failed you. I failed your village. I failed your people. But most of all, I failed your son." He looked to the monument. "Please forgive me." That was when he heard knocking on the door. Composing himself, he quickly wiped away the tear and held his arms behind his back. "Enter." As the door opened, Kakashi heard the voice of an old friend of his. "Wow. I leave for a few years and this is what happens." Kakashi turned around faster than he has nowadays to see the legendary Sannin himself, Jiraiya. He stood there with his arms crossed and sporting a grin at the shocked Hokage. "Jiraiya?" Kakashi started in a baffled tone. After he heard of Naruto's banishment all those years ago, Jiraiya went in search of his blonde student with no luck whatsoever. He had even sent his spy network out to find the boy, but the same results kept happening. It was almost like Naruto just vanished. After a while, he got word that Tsunade had stepped down from being Hokage and left Konoha. That was when Jiraiya went and searched for her. It took him months to find a trail and even longer to catch up to her, but when he did, he found that she had been drowning her guilt in alcohol and gambling yet again. It pained Jiraiya to see his friend revert back to her old ways after she had finally gotten over her brother and lover's deaths. He talked to her and tried to convince her to come back to Konoha to help fight for her home, only to receive a punch to the face and her telling him off. All her pain, all her grief, all her anger, let out upon Jiraiya about the council, the elders, the people, and the village itself. All for a traitorous little brat who never gave a shit about anyone but himself. And Naruto had to suffer from it. Jiraiya wasn't there that day. He didn't see the look of betrayal and pain in his eyes that day as his world came crashing down. After her rant and passing out, Shizen told the Toad Sannin that Tsunade doesn't want to come back to that awful village again unless Naruto willingly came back as well. That was when Jiraiya had heard of Ain joining Oto and Kusa to destroy Konoha. So here he was. "Been a while, huh, Kakashi?" Jiraiya started as he dropped his smirk and put on a serious look. "How are you holding up?" Kakashi sighed as he went over and sat in his chair. He rubbed his temples as he leaned on the desk and explained the situation. "The people of Konoha have lost hope. The Umbu are stretched so thin that if we somehow survive this war we'll have more losses than ever. The Jounin and Chunin are preparing but have lost their morale. The council is up my ass trying desperately to negotiate a full-on assault with the impending forces. And I had no choice but to reinstate Danzo's root Umbu." Kakashi leaned in his chair now. "And to make things worse, Asuma and Kurenai's team found Naruto in Earth Country." Jiraiya went wide-eyed and dropped his arms. "Where is he? Is he back in the village?" Kakashi quickly stopped him to answer. "Naruto is fine, Jiraiya. As a matter of fact, he has a wife and 2 children, and no interest in coming back here." Kakashi saw the conflicted look in Jiraiya's eyes and explained another point that even shocked him when he first heard it. "Naruto is also the White Fox." What?" Jiraiya stuttered out. "Naruto is the one who is listed in the bingo book as the now SS rank ninja, the White Fox." Kakashi answered him. "He is the sole reason Kusa is still standing and why AIM fears anything associated with him. They would cower and run away at the mere mention of his name. And that is all Naruto." Jiraiya was jaw-dropped at hearing all of this. Not only has his former student's son been banished and lived with his own family, but he was also known as the infamous White Fox. How did all of this come to be? How? Front gate. As everyone was being dispersed from the gate by the root Umbu, the 2 guards were back to watching any and all movements outside of the village. While they were there, they did notice the root Umbu earlier and were sick to think that those bastards were able to be brought back. It made their blood boil, but they knew that times were tougher than ever before. They looked to each other and sighed in frustration before noticing a rustling sound not too far from them. They immediately went on high alert only to see a few rabbits scurrying out. They relaxed for a moment, but that was short-lived when 2 figures just appeared out of a red-flamed shunshin in front of them. "What the hell?" one of the guards said as he took out a kunai. The other did as well, but their caution turned to fear when they saw who was in front of them. Standing there in a blood-red coat reaching past his knees, black ninja cargo pants with a dark red undershirt, black ninja shoes and his signature white mask stood the infamously known White Fox. A woman was standing next to him. She wore a similar outfit to the White Fox, only her coat was a dark crimson color, the same as her eyes. Her long red hair was tied up in a ponytail. They both wielded swords on their backs. The White Fox with his signature Akayakuma that was said to be the soul of an actual demon that only someone with an evil soul could wield. The woman carried a short sword in a black sheath. The handle was a dark crimson color with a bright red guard. The two guards tensed at the sight of the white fox, and could only stand there and pray that he wasn't here for a fight. The white fox looked to the two and shook his head slightly before turning to the woman. "Let's go," he said to her, which earned him a nod. The two went for the entrance but was stopped when both men stood in front of them, ready to defend their home even if it meant their lives. Both the white fox and the woman stopped in front of the two. They would have just tossed these two aside like trash, but they wanted to bide their time when it came to the village. They wanted to make the villagers feel some type of security before ripping it away completely. Instead of doing anything to them, both the white fox and the woman simply moved so fast behind the two and knocked them out with a quick chop to the back of the neck. "We could just kill them all for their crimes against you," Kurama started. "You know that, don't you?" Naruto smirked under his mask, a gesture Kurama could simply feel, and smirked back. "I know." Naruto started to her before they continued inside. "But I won't. Not yet, at least." They didn't get far as they were now surrounded by 5 rude umbu. The 5 tensed at who they were seeing and readied themselves for a harsh battle. Naruto, on the other hand, simply looked to the 5 and went to the inside of his coat. He pulled out a bag and held it to the rude umbu. By now, the crowd from before were seeing the white fox standing there in front of the rude umbu. They watched in both wonder, fear, and intrigue as to why someone as well known as the white fox was doing here. That was when he spoke. "I wish to speak with the leader of this man here." The white fox dropped the bag and it rolled over to one of the roots. The leader of this small group picked up the bag and opened it up. He immediately dropped it, and everyone saw the head of a pale white root umbu roll out of it. The umbu and civilians looked to the white fox with terror in their eyes and in their body language. "I'll only say this one time and one time only," the white fox said in a tone that bordered no argument. "Where is Danzo?" The root umbu stood stiff and were about to possibly cave under the killing intent that was radiating from him. That was when a certain, pink-haired teen ran out of the crowd and stood there behind the root. She was panting heavily and looked visibly shocked at who she was seeing. Naruto looked to her before turning his attention back to the root umbu. "Tell Danzo to get his one-eyed ass out here before I get very impatient," the white fox said to them in a dark tone. One of the root decided to head out and quickly find Danzo-sama. While that root left, the crowd started to fill with all too familiar faces to Naruto. His old friends stood in the crowd away from him. Most likely they knew that he was White Fox by now, so their hesitant was to be expected. He watched them as they stood there taking all of this in. Why was Naruto here? Who was the guy that he brought the head back to? Why did he want to speak to one of the Elder Council members? So many questions with no answers in sight. Before they could even approach him to answer, the Hokage along with Danzo and the other Elder Council members appeared in a leaf shunshin. Naruto looked to his former sensei and saw him in the Hokage robes. He remembered at one point in his life he wanted to be the one wearing that, but that was no longer the case now. "I see you seem a little defensive there, Dash." Kakashi started but was interrupted by Danzo. "Root Umbu, seize them both!" Before anyone could stop them, the Root Umbu rushed the two. Naruto and Kurama stood still as the small group reacted to Danzo's orders. The rookie 9+ Sakura watched as the Root prepared to take their friend and that woman down, and they were ready to step in to help. That wasn't necessary as the White Fox simply moved so fast, and now stood in front of Danzo with his sword drawn and covered in blood. The Root Umbu fell to the ground, piece by piece, causing more than a few civilians lose their lunch at seeing the brutality at all. Danzo stood in shock at seeing this and stood his ground, ready to use any method to get out of this cleanly. "You know where he is?" Naruto started in the same dark tone. "Who?" Danzo asked as his sweat dropped. Suddenly and without warning, the White Fox grabbed Danzo by the throat and lifted him into the air with ease. Danzo started choking and grabbed at Naruto's arm. Kakashi stepped in and placed a stern hand onto his former student's shoulder. Naruto looked to his former sensei. "I don't know why you're here, or what you're talking about." He clenched his hand tighter. "But not out here. Not now, Naruto." He whispered that last part. Naruto looked to him before turning back to Danzo again. The old man was still gasping for air and Naruto was in no mood to be subtle. Then I'll only ask this nicely one last time. He started as he brought Danzo closer to his masked face. Where the fuck did Orochimaru take my children? Kakashi heard this and looked to the old man with shock and anger in his visible eye. If this meant what he thought it meant, then Danzo must be in communication with Orochimaru in some way. I don't know what you're talking dash. Danzo managed to gasp out before being chocked again. Lie to me again, and you'll see firsthand why my blade is called the Red Demon, Naruto said to him. Now where is Orochimaru? He said a little louder this time for everyone to hear. The crowd and the ninja all around heard this, and already there were murmurs going on. Murmurs led to questions, and questions led to people voicing those questions. Some a little more vocal than others. All Naruto did was shoot them all a look and some killing intent to shut the crowd up. If you don't tell me where his base is, I'm going to have to reintroduce this village to my wife. He looked back to Kurama, who was still standing among the dead root umbu with her arms crossed. And you do not want her to do that? Heh. Danzo squeaked out. And what exactly could she do to one of the most powerful villages in all of the elemental nations? Naruto dropped Danzo and turned back to her. He nodded and she nodded back. Suddenly, 9 large red tails came out of her lower back, swirled around her. The crowd of people all gasped in shock and fear as the large tails started to grow in size. The woman couldn't be seen anymore, but instead, a silhouette of a fox could be seen past the tails. Everyone, with the exception of Naruto of course, quaked in fear as the tails finished growing and separated from the body. There stood the 9-tailed fox itself. There were screams of terror and people scattering away in fear to get away from the monster that nearly destroyed their home almost 2 decades ago. Kakashi stood there absolutely flabbergasted at what he was seeing. He remembered the night of the Kyuubi attack that night, and prayed that he would never bear witness to that kind of brutality ever again. Now, unfortunately, he would be known as the Hokage that let the Kyuubi destroy Konoha. Danzo was still on the ground, but his eye was completely glued to the tailed beast in front of him. All his planning, all his scheming, all the dirty tricks and secret agendas, and all of that now gone in just one moment. His plans for a stronger Konoha vanished as the Kyuubi no Kitsune would destroy his precious village. That was when he had one last-ditch effort to ensure his village's safety. Wait! He shouted, getting the Naruto's attention. Orochimaru's hideout is in Oto, in a secret cave to the west near a desert. That's where he is! That's where they are! Danzo pleaded at that point. Kakashi wanted to be angry at Danzo, but right now he was too terrified to say anything to the man. The white fox turned around to the Kyuubi and nodded his head to it. The Kyuubi did the same and looked ready to attack, but that was when Kakashi made his voice known once more. Naruto! At the sound of his real name, Naruto stopped Kurama and turned back to Kakashi. He removed his fox mask to properly look to the man who was his sensei at a time long ago. Don't do this! This place, no matter what happened in the past, is still your home. Is still your parents' home. Don't destroy your father's legacy, Naruto! Naruto raised an eyebrow at hearing those words. And who in the hell was he then? Where was he when I was being hunted down by the people of his village? Where was he when I was kicked out an orphanage when I was 3 and had to live on the street? Where was he when I was beaten to death, tortured, burned, stabbed, drowned, poisoned, cut, and even tossed off a few buildings? Where the fuck was he then, Kakashi, and why the fuck should I care about him? Because he was Minato Namake's, last member of the Namake's name, husband of the last Uzumaki, Kushina Uzumaki, and the 4th Hokage. Kakashi yelled out, hoping that this would change Naruto's mind about destroying the village and hopefully come to his senses to help in the war. Naruto went wide-eyed at hearing this information. He looked to the Hokage mountain and saw the 4th there looking towards the village. His village. That was when he clenched his fist and gritted his teeth in anger. Now that he knows who his father was and that he was in fact the one Naruto hated the most growing up, his anger was amplified even more. When he was a kid, it didn't take him long to figure out that something was wrong when people said he was the reason the 4th died. For a while, Naruto didn't know what they meant until he slipped into a library and read on the fourth sacrifice to stop the Kyuubi. It was said that he sealed the Kyuubi inside of a baby at the time, but didn't specify which one. It didn't take long for Naruto to figure out that it must have been him. He was born the same day as the Kyuubi's defeat, so it only made sense. He hated the fourth for burdening him with this, and causing the people of the village to see him the way they did. Now, to find out that the fourth was his father, that was the last straw. Naruto reined in on his anger and looked to Kakashi. Kakashi thought that his tactic worked and Naruto would want to preserve and save his legacy. Even Jiraiya, who was up on top of a large building watching everything at this moment, was hopeful of his student now. He would make up for the hardships Naruto went through this time around and earn his former student Minato's forgiveness. Naruto took a deep breath, then turned to Kurama. She looked down to him with a visible worry to her crimson eyes. She knew of Naruto's hatred and anger towards the fourth, and now towards his own father. She hoped that her husband wouldn't fall like this and willingly go back to the very village he vowed to her never to return to. That worry turned to surprise, then a vicious glare when Naruto motioned to the mountain of the Hokages. Kurama wasted no time looking to the mountain and charged up her own attack. "Naruto, no!" Kakashi and now Jiraiya shouted, but were too late as the Kyuubi fired a beam of condensed energy directly at the fourth's head. The beam went through and kept going, destroying the fourth Hokage's head and anything in its path. It finally stopped and a large explosion was visible to the entire village. Everyone screamed as they saw what happened to the mountain. People were beyond terrified at this point. "Damn it, no!" Jiraiya shouted out as he summoned Gamabunta. The large toad summons drew its blade the second he saw the Kyuubi standing in front of him. Jiraiya stood on top of the toad's head and readied himself for a hard battle. "Naruto! Don't make me do this!" Naruto looked to another former teacher of his and smirked before nodding to Kurama. She nodded back and reverted back to her human-like self. Kakashi and Jiraiya, along with Danzo, who was in absolute shock at seeing the Kyuubi's power firsthand, has looked to the blonde with confused reactions. The rookie 9 plus Sakura all came back the moment the Kyuubi disappeared and saw Naruto standing there with that same woman as before. Naruto saw them and gave no reaction as he turned back to Kakashi. "This is your only warning." He started in a dark tone that caused even Gamabunta to visibly sweat drop. "After I tear apart Orochimaru, Sasuke, and anyone else who gets in my way, I'm coming back here." He put his mask back on and released an ungodly amount of killer intent on everyone within the village. "And I'm gonna burn this village to the ground." And with that, Naruto and Kurama left via that red flamed shunshin. The Ki stopped and caused Gamabunta to puff and smoke. Kakashi, Jiraiya, the rookie 9 and Sakura all felt it. That wasn't the same Naruto from long ago. This Naruto wasn't going to be their savior, or their hero that would save the village. No. He wasn't that anymore. He was their end. Chapter 8, Fall of Oto, Part 1. It didn't take long for word to spread throughout Konohagakure that the White Fox was going to Oto. News spread like wildfire though when it was revealed that the White Fox somehow had the Kyuubi no Kitsune in his possession. Nobody in Konoha aside from the Hokage, Danzo, Jiraiya and the rookie 9 plus Sakura knew the truth though. The people of the village were in a panicked frenzy pleading with the Hokage to let them leave and take their chances outside of the village. Kakashi had to figure out some sort of way to simmer the fear in people but knew of none. How could he? How could he reassure the people when he couldn't even get back the one person he had failed the hardest on? His sensei would be turning in the heavens now at his former student's colossal failure to lure back one person. One precious person to both he and the village. Kakashi knew that these were dark days. But now with Naruto revealing that his wife is actually the Kyuubi no Kitsune and that she can transform to her full Bijou form, add to the fact that Naruto also ensured that he will burn the village to the ground and that change these dark days to simple numbers. Numbers that will either end with Oto, Kumo and Aim coming to destroy them, or Naruto would come back with Kyuubi and take care of the whole villagers before any of the three armies had the chance. Kakashi slumped in his chair and knew that this was truly the end of the home his sensei once called his home. The village that he swore to protect and serve no matter the cost, but this was too much even for him. He stood up from his chair and wiped his one good eye of a stray tear that tracked his face as he didn't have his mask on at the time. The council wanted an emergency meeting to address everything that had happened yesterday. Kakashi knew that this could only end badly. With Naruto and Kurama, it only took the pair a day to reach the border that led into Otogekure. They looked to the border patrol with no interest even when they circled the two. The border nin were Oto nin with a few Kumo nin and only 2 aim nin. At the very sight of the white fox, the 2 aim nin froze with fear before running away back into Otogekure. Smart move! The woman beside the white fox spoke up and grinned at the remaining ninja. Said remaining ninja had decided to stay and charge the two. Not a great plan. With Boruto and Akira. Both the brother and sister duo had been tied up back-to-back style since they awoke here. They were sitting in some kind of cell in a dimly lit room with just bars as an entrance and exit. The two didn't look hurt or injured in any way really and were relatively fine, aside from being a bit hungry. Boruto was looking around the earthy room for anything that could help him and Akira out of this. So far, he had nothing. This sucks, he said out loud. Oni-san. Akira started in a low tone that sounded strained. You okay, Akira? Boruto asked, concerned for his sister. My eyes hurt, she said as she closed her eyes to dim the pain. Before Boruto could say anything to reassure her, Akira winced in pain and opened her eyes. They were a very deep purple color all around and a pitch-black pupil in the center of each eye. When she did this, her hair started to react violently as it swirled around her and Boruto, crushing the chains holding them both. Boruto stepped away from his sister as she started to grow fox ears from her head. They were a light shade of purple as her hair started to change to the color as well. From the base of her spine, a long fox tail started to sprout from her. The tail was rather long, able to wrap around her small frame with ease, and the same shade as her new hair. Her whisker marks started to furrow and nails grew to a ferocious length. There was chakra swirling around her. A dark red chakra in the form of a fox on fire, and a calm blue chakra began to swirl in the opposite direction around her. The chakras met above her and collided to form a bright purple energy that was raging yet calm at the same time. The energy dissipated and Akira fell to her knees. Akira! Boruto shouted out as he quickly rushed to his sister's side and let her rest in his arms. Akira, are you okay? He asked her in a concerned tone. Akira's appearance changed and she was back to her normal self. She fell asleep in her brother's arms and Boruto let out a sigh of relief, not realizing what he saw. At that moment, the cell opened and in walked a few Oto nin. They looked a bit surprised that the two children were free of the chains, yet you couldn't tell because of the cloth masks they wore on their mouths. How in the hell did you two break free? One of the guards asked in an impatient tone. Boruto thought quickly then waved his hand in front of his face in a comical way. Magic? The Oto nin weren't amused and went in to grab them both, but that was when they all heard an explosion and screaming. The Oto nin were distracted by whatever caused this that it gave Boruto the perfect opportunity to show why he was very hard to catch. Scooping up his still asleep sister, Boruto quickly made his way past the ninjas and out of the cell. Hey! One of the nin yelled out as Boruto slid through his legs to escape. Capture them before Orochimaru-sama or Sasuke-sama find out! Don't wait up, losers! Boruto yelled out as he ran through the maze of this underground base, avoiding any and all Oto, Kumo and Aim nin in his path. Orochimaru, Sasuke and Kabuto. What is going on out there? Kabuto yelled to one of the Oto nin monitoring the perimeter of their base. I don't know. One moment we're getting 2 intruders near the border, the next we have reports of some monster by the Aim nin. A terrified Oto nin answered. TCH. Kabuto grunted as he turned to his master. Orochimaru-sama, what do you want us to do? Orochimaru was stroking his chin in slight annoyance. He had anticipated Naruto coming here recklessly and getting caught, but something was different. Maybe that snake he sent to spy on Danzo forgot to mention something in its report. Who knows for now? Sasuke-kun, the snake Sannin said to his future vessel. It seems that your former teammate has arrived. Why don't you greet him properly this time? Sasuke smirked as he disappeared in a shunshin. Orochimaru grinned as he looked to where the boy once was. He was completely unaware of the White Fox or the Kyuubi no Kitsun's presence, or the escape of his little insurance policy. Chapter 9, The Fall of Odo, Part 2. Back with Boruto and Akira, things seemed to be a little bit quiet for the brother and sister duo. They had avoided the Odo and Kyumo Nin, but Boruto had heard the Aim Nin panic at the sight of, as they put, the devil himself. Boruto had zero clue what that was supposed to mean, but he knew that he had to get Akira out of this place and fast. Boruto had slipped past a few corridors with Akira still knocked out on his back. He had no idea where he was going or where to go, but one thing was for certain, he would have to figure out how to get out of this place and fast. He rounded a few more corners until he ran into a man with raven black hair and these strange red eyes. The man looked down to Boruto and smirked. So, the Dobe's little brats escaped, I see. He started as the Tomo in his eyes started to spin. Suddenly, Boruto started to feel lightheaded before passing out. This will work to my advantage once he gets here. He lifted Boruto up by the collar of his shirt, while he roughly just slung Akira onto his shoulder. I'll deal with this White Fox before I kill Naruto, he said to himself as he continued on to what he didn't know was his inevitable doom. Naruto and Kurama. It didn't take them long to break into the underground fortress. It was just incredibly tedious for them both, having to face weak ninja after weak ninja. They wanted to find Boruto and Akira and destroy this entire place, along with Orochimaru and Sasuke still in it. And then, why stop there? Otogekure has been nothing but trouble for as long as Naruto knew of it. And Kurama was no different to this thought. Why not just wipe out all of Otogekure along with Orochimaru? Eradicate the potential for problems altogether and make it so that everyone knows one sole truth in the world. Don't fuck with the White Fox. Plain and simple. It didn't take long for Kurama to feel something. It was faint, but for a split second, it reached heights of power similar to a two-tailed beast. That was when she knew one of their children had just unlocked their Bijou chakra. With this new information, both Naruto and Kurama ran off to where the faint energy was. They rounded several long corridors before entering into an open room large enough for an army to enter. That's when they saw him. Sasuke, standing there, with Boruto on the ground and Akira held by the back of her neck. The two saw so much red, but knew they couldn't release all their killer intent on him, otherwise they would be hurting Boruto and Akira. Well? Sasuke started with a cocky smirk. I see the Dobe's wife here, but I don't see him. HN. That was when Sasuke figured it out, and started to chuckle under his breath before doing a full-blown laugh. His laugh angered the two but woke Akira from her sleep. She opened her eyes and saw her mother standing across from her along with a man in a White Fox mask. She immediately perked up and looked around to see a crazed man holding her by the neck and her brother lying on the floor. Oniai-san! Akira yelled out as she tried to break out of the man's iron grip. She looked over to her mother with pleading eyes. Oka-san! It's okay, sweetie, Kurama said to her in a kind and motherly tone. Oka-san and Tu-san are here now. Don't worry about a thing, my little fox. Sasuke simply smirked at the words, confirming what he had just figured out. So, he started as he lifted Akira up by her neck as she struggled. The Dobe became the so-called infamous White Fox, and had a few little brats since I defeated you all those years ago. Why don't you show your face to me before I kill your precious little fox? Naruto gritted his teeth as he took his mask off. He stared daggers at the Uchiha, and was struggling to hold off his attack for fear of hitting Akira. Speaking of Akira, she was a little bit surprised to see her father was the White Fox, but at the same time she was happy. She knew that he can and he will save her, no doubt about that. Tu-san, Akira said with a smile on her face. Naruto smiled at her. It's okay, Akira. Daddy's here. Sasuke smirked as he was silently preparing a Chidori right this second. He wanted Naruto to witness true pain and loss before he started this fight. This would be so satisfying for him to truly get revenge on his once teammate and rival turned bitter, hated enemy. Just as Naruto was about to make his move, Sasuke did it. He plunged his Chidori right into Akira's back and listened to her cries of pain. Naruto and Kurama went wide-eyed and were in absolute shock at what they were seeing. "Akira!" They both shouted out as Sasuke dropped her on the ground the moment the little girl went limp in his hand. He threw her towards them and as quickly as they could, Kurama caught her. They were in horror at the massive hole that was now in her back and Sasuke started to laugh maniacally. Before any tears could be shed though, Kurama could feel the Bijuu chakra rushing to the wound in her daughter. "How does it feel, dope?" Sasuke barked out as he had assumed he had won. "Naruto," Kurama said to her husband in a whisper and motioned to the now healing wound. "How does it feel to lose someone close to you and there's not a damn thing you can do about it?" Sasuke continued, this time waking up Boruto. The boy looked over to where he saw his mother and father and rushed over to them. Sasuke didn't bother to stop, an ego thing most likely. "Akira!" Boruto yelled out as he went over and knelt down to see his sister healing with that weird purple chakra. "Hey, that's the same chakra from before." "Before?" Naruto asked his son, ignoring the laughs and boasting from Sasuke, who apparently couldn't see that Akira was healing herself. "Yeah. While we were tied up, she said her eyes were hurting, then she just freaked out on me," Boruto explained. "Her Bijuu energy," Kurama started, getting Naruto's attention. "Akira's Bijuu energy must have been activated during that time of great stress. Meaning that she has tailed beast inside of her." Naruto finished his wife's statement. "Yes," Kurama answered with a nod and a smile. "She's gonna be okay. Take care of your old teammate, Naruto. And this time, wreak havoc." Naruto smiled to her and nodded before turning to his son. "Boruto, stay with your mother and sister." He stood up and turned to Sasuke, sword drawn. "I'll end this in an instant." Chapter 10: The Fall of Odo, Finale. Naruto looked straight at Sasuke with a sinister look in his eyes. A look that Sasuke didn't think that Naruto of all people was capable of doing. The blonde gave the last Uchiha a smirk, a devilish smirk. A smirk that sent a shiver up Sasuke's spine. Naruto stretched a few times before slowly and methodically walking over to the now fearful Sasuke. The Uchiha, in turn, assumed that this was just grief and anger from his old rival killing his daughter. Unfortunately for him though, Naruto was more or less thrilled instead of angry. This would be the last time the two would fight. The last time the Uchiha would be seen by anyone. The last time that he would draw a breath. Without wasting any time, Naruto drew his sword and continued to walk towards Sasuke. Sasuke drew his blade and took his stance, that sly smirk on face to paint his ego perfectly. Naruto didn't bother to even raise his blade to block as Sasuke lunged towards him, swinging his sword at the blonde with ferocity and power. Naruto simply dodged with ease and a look of boredom on his face. After all this time since their last, near-life-threatening battle, this was all Sasuke could do. It was beyond pathetic really, it was downright sad in Naruto's opinion. Sasuke was getting frustrated and decided to step it up a notch. His blade was covered in lightning, and he started to move faster. To anyone else, it would look like a blur, but to Naruto, it looked like Sasuke went from the speed of an old man to the speed of a child swinging a stick around. Pathetic. Naruto almost pitied him as he still lazily dodged all of Sasuke's strikes. Sasuke took a step back when he saw Naruto take a step forward and landed on the other side of the room. His thoughts of pure confusion as to how the dobe obtained such power. He deserved this power and would do anything to obtain it. He activated his Sharingan and took a stance to realize that Naruto was just gone. He looked around before feeling a fist connect to the left side of his jaw and sent him flying to the other end of the room. Sasuke caught himself midair and was met with a knee to the chin, sending him skyward for a moment. Sasuke tried and failed to catch himself as Naruto appeared in front of him and kicked him back down to the ground with enough force to leave a fairly large crater. Naruto dropped down with his sword pointed downward to finish off the Uchiha, only to be met by his second curse mark form. Naruto dodged Sasuke's attacks and had to block the even more ferocious attacks the Uchiha was giving him. This was a little more interesting to Naruto, but not by much really. He hasn't been this bored in a fight since he slaughtered those nin back during the war. Sasuke could still tell that Naruto was holding back, if not just mildly interested in this fight. He would have to use his entire arsenal of tricks to defeat the blonde, and that would start with what defeated him only a few days ago. He activated his genjutsu, expecting it to incapacitate Naruto once again, only this time, Naruto smirked at his foolish attempts. He raised his blade to Sasuke, and the Uchiha saw the glowing red blade and showed that the blood-red eyes was glowing and moving around. "My blade and the demon within it aren't very impressed with your genjutsu skills, Sasuke," Naruto started as he walked over to the stunned Uchiha. "A Kayakuma is a demonic blade that feeds off of negative energy and blood. Your negative energy, anger, doubt, frustration, fear, is doing a very fine job of feeding him. Now it's time he feeds on fresh Uchiha blood." Before Sasuke could make a retort, Naruto had already disappeared at speeds even the Sharingan couldn't track. He looked around for a moment before feeling a very sharp and sudden pain on his back. He looked behind him and saw that his two hand wings had been sliced clean off. The blood was flowing from his wound and covering the ground behind him. He yelled in pain only to later on feel his entire right arm severed from his body. The fresh blood fell to the ground, and he had no time to prepare for what came next. Naruto stood in front of his kneeling, bleeding out form, and decided to add insult to injury. With one swift motion, Naruto ripped out Sasuke's precious eyes and held them in his hand. Sasuke screamed in pain before collapsing and holding the sockets where his eyes used to be. The pain in his back and arms were nothing compared to the pain he was feeling now. It was so unbearable that he passed out. Naruto held the eyes in his hand and grinned at an idea he had for later. He put the eyes in a sealing scroll before pocketing it. He looked down at Sasuke's unconscious form and smirked down to him. "Now you'll see the world like I used to see it as a child. Darkness and despair, but don't worry, Sasuke. You won't be feeling anything later after I'm done with your master." Naruto walked over to his family, and smiled warmly at his wife and chuckled a bit at his jaw-dropped son. He then looked down to Akira and noticed that she was stirring a bit. My! A new voice rang out from behind them. Naruto turned and saw the snake himself standing near the downed Sasuke with a smirk on his face. "I had such high hopes for you, Sasuke, but oh well. I suppose I'll have to acquire a new vessel, and one of those children should do well. I've been waiting a long time for this Orochimaru." Kurama started as she stood up, while Naruto took Akira. "Oh." Orochimaru raised a brow at this woman. "And who might you be, if I may ask?" Kurama decided to show instead of tell, and boy, the look on the snake's face was priceless once she revealed her large red tails. Orochimaru backed away as he realized all too late that he made a grave mistake. He hadn't just angered Naruto and a random woman. He angered Naruto and the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Before he could retreat, he felt a sharp pain through his chest as Kurama shoved her tail through him. He coughed up blood and looked at her crimson eyes as she said to him in a near whisper, "You will feel the very fires of hell engulf your entire being for committing the ultimate sin to any mother." She continued even when Orochimaru started to pass out from blood loss. "You, the bastard Uchiha, and all of Odo will burn till even the ash disappears, but you two will burn in the one place you deserve to be in. That I can guarantee." And with those words, Kurama dropped the snake and sealed both he and the Uchiha in a large scroll for what they were about to do next. She returned to her family just as Naruto was picking up a stirring awake Akira up. She laid her hand on Boruto's shoulder as she leaned into Naruto, and they shunshined away from this place just as Kabuto and the rest of Oto's forces arrived. All the nin pulled out in fear of the White Fox's arrival. The Kyuubi nin also arrived with the bulk of their army ready to face the White Fox. The four arrived on a hill overlooking all of Otogakure. Naruto looked to Kurama and with a smile that was warm to his children but meant something completely different to her, he nodded. He took the kids and shunned away from her to do what she was about to do. Kurama transformed into her full-tailed beast form and, with a mighty roar, she formed the largest Biju bomb ever. She looked down for a brief moment, and could faintly hear the cries and panicked wails of the people within Otogekure. She felt no remorse as she fired the Biju bomb towards the center of Otogekure. The explosion was large and covered the entire area, and in one swift motion, silence. No more cries or fearful people, just silence as the fires spread and engulfed the entire area. Kurama felt nothing towards them. Their leader is responsible for this, not her. If it wasn't for Orochimaru, then none of this would have happened to the innocent. None of it to the ones just following orders. None of it to the mothers and fathers as they clutched their children when the oblivion swept across them. Kurama felt nothing, as she knew her husband didn't as well. She changed back to her human form and shunned away to be with her family. When she arrived, she was greeted by the two balls of joy rushing her and engulfing her in a tight hug. She hugged the two as well as they were in front of their home now. She looked at Naruto and nodded just outside their children's view. He nodded as well and knew that now there was only one thing left to do: burn Konoha to the ground. Chapter 11: Konoha no more. It didn't take long for word to reach all around the elemental nations of what happened to Oto. News of the White Fox and his partner the Kyubi no Kitsune destroying the entire area shocked and terrified everyone all throughout the lands. All except for Kusa, who still saw him as a true hero. The bingo book was updated for the White Fox from an SS rank ninja to the only SSS rank ninja with a run-on-site description in the book's history. All throughout the nations, the Kages were preparing for an attack out of both paranoia and fear of being in the same state as Otogekure. Konoha wasn't faring too well though. Only the Rookie 9, Sakura, their Jounin senseis, Jiraiya, Kakashi and Danzo knew what he was going to do next. And if Sasuke, all of Oto, Kumo and Aim, and Orochimaru could stop him when they were at their strongest, then what chance did Konoha have right now? They all knew that Naruto was a man of his word and that he would come back here, ready to burn it to the ground. The only question was, what to do now? Danzo was convicted of treason towards Konoha by supplying information to Orochimaru and his forces, so that was one taken care of. Jiraiya and Kakashi had been working tirelessly on a way to stop Naruto when he arrives with seals like how the fourth defeated the fox the first time. The Jounin senseis were preparing as best as they could while also trying and failing to convince their former students to join them in preparation for Naruto's arrival. The Rookie 9 plus Sakura had all but given up. After hearing Naruto's promise of burning the entire village to the ground, coupled with the fact that he still believed they attended that celebration all those years ago of his banishment, the will to fight was completely gone from them all. For Sakura, she had lost both her teammates and friends, and there wasn't a damn thing she could do about it. Hinata had lost the love of her life, and saw that he had a family, the one dream she fought desperately for only to have it ripped from her. Shikamaru and Choji felt as if the only thing to do now was just spend as much time together watching the clouds than anything else now. Kiba and Akamaru just stayed with their family and hoped that it would be quick. Ino had spent her time with Sakura because she didn't want to be alone. Tenten and Niji stayed together and promised to meet each other in the afterlife. Shino was at peace with what he knew would happen and awaited the end. Lee merely meditated as he focused on simply how to be better than now if he reincarnates. The night after the news of Oto's destruction, they all met at Training Ground 7 one last time. It wasn't to plan some sort of attack or even get ready to face Naruto, it was just to say goodbye. "I'm really gonna miss all of you," Ino said to them with a tear in her eye. "Yeah. Me too," Shikamaru spoke up. "At least when this is all over, it won't ever be troublesome ever again." "Ain't that the truth?" Kiba said with a smirk, the first he's done in a few days. "I just hope that when Naruto does show up, he'll at least make it quick for us. Not like we really deserve it." Tenten spoke up with her head down. Niji held her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "We'll be together for it. I promise," he said to her, looking the girl he loves in the eyes. "Wow. And here I thought a guy like Niji didn't actually love anyone. A new yet familiar voice broke them from their thoughts. They all turned to the direction of the voice and saw, to their surprise and near horror, Naruto Uzumaki, standing with his wife next to him. "Hey guys. Been a while, hasn't it?" To say that they were all tense was an understatement. They were terrified at why he was here in front of them. Thanks to Shikamaru, he had already deduced that that woman was indeed the Kyuubi in a sort of human form, and that thought made them even more fearful. They all took a step back as Naruto tilted his head a bit and raised an eyebrow. "You all seem defensive for some reason," he started. "You all can calm down. If I wanted all of you dead, I would have just done it by now." This had a small reaction as most of them relaxed a bit, but were still shaken and tense. "I only came here because I wanted to warn all of you to leave Konoha before noon tomorrow." They all went wide-eyed at what he said, and a whirlwind of questions were asked, or shouted. Naruto didn't bother to answer the meaningless ones and instead answered one that was asked the most. "Why? Why them? I'm telling all of you not out of friendship or anything of the sort, but because my wife convinced me to," Naruto said to them while Kurama stood next to him. "She convinced me that not everyone in this village deserves what's coming to them." They all tensed at his words, but something wasn't right here. Why was he warning them now of all times? Why give them this in advance if he wasn't doing this as a friend? They had so many questions, but Naruto was in no mood to answer them. He turned around to walk away along with Kurama, only to be stopped by a certain lavender-haired girl. "Naruto-kun. Wait." Hinata spoke up as she went over to the now stopped Naruto. Kurama knew what was about to happen. Unlike Naruto at the time of his younger years, she picked up on the Hyuga girl's crush on her blonde vessel. She knew that this girl simply couldn't live without her precious Naruto-kun. Her dream most likely to be with him and marry him, only for that dream to be absolutely shattered into a million pieces by Kurama. The Kyuubi no Kitsune took Hinata's dream away from her, and the girl would do anything to get it back. Anything. "Hinata." Naruto spoke before turning to the still girl. He looked at her with a stern yet soft look in his eyes that she didn't recognize as a monster or demon that everyone had always kept calling him beforehand, but as a man who was going to say something she didn't want to hear. Taking a deep breath, Naruto spoke to her. "I'm sorry, Hinata. But we can't. I can't be with you. My heart belongs to Kurama, my wife, my love." He held out his hand to the demoness, and she took it with a gentle hand. "I'm sorry, but this is who my heart belongs to. Her and my children are the most important thing in my life. Goodbye, Hinata. But, and then a narrate too." She stuttered out as the tears in her eyes fell in droves. "I love you. I know." He started to her. "But I can't return that love the way you want me to. This is all I can give you. Go and live. For me." Before any of them could say anything, Naruto and Kurama were gone in a red-flamed shunshin, leaving a sobbing Hinata along with an equally distraught group right behind her. The next day, 11:50. Kakashi was sitting in his chair inside his home and looked on to the rest of the village from his window. After word got out on Oto, he knew that the days of Konoha were truly numbered. Not by an army or some kind of powerful alliance, but by a single individual. An individual that Kakashi himself had tried and failed to help all those years ago. An individual that had every right to want Konoha to be an exact same crater-sized hole just like Odogakure. Naruto Uzumaki. He was coming back here and he was going to do what he promised to do. Burn Konoha to the ground. Kakashi knew that he was a man of his word, and knew that this was indeed the end. Especially after he got a letter from someone in an obvious henge telling him that at noon tomorrow, the village would be no more. Of course Kakashi brought this to the council and got the response he knew would happen. Panic, outrage, wanting to bolster the Leaf's defenses, call upon someone for assistance, anything. That of course was the civilian side and elders, while the shinobi side wanted to evacuate the village and save as many people as possible. Enraged by the lack of integrity, Danzo, who pulled many strings in favors to be released, seized the opportunity to take the position of Hokage from the former Jounin. A task that proved too easy when Kakashi practically threw the hat towards the old man and stepped down, not just from the Hokage position, but also as a shinobi in general. He left the chamber after convincing most of the clan heads that this was something they weren't going to win. The original Ino Shikacho stepped down as well, along with some Inuzuka and Shibi Aburame. Of course, Hayashi wasn't going to let one little demon brat and his apparent whore of a wife intimidate him, so he stayed to reap the rewards of Naruto's defeat. Danzo would have marked them as missing Nin, but he had preparation to do and a blonde weapon to leash in the morning. Jiraiya had tried and failed to convince them to stay and fight for their home, but they all felt the same guilt from what was coming and decided to cut their losses. Now, Kakashi stood there at his door to leave and looks at the clock. 11:53, 7 minutes left. He took one last look at the room he had called home for all his left and saw the picture of him and Team 7. This caused him to shed a tear in his eye as he took the headband off and placed it near the picture. Grabbing a dark blue bandana, he tied it to cover his Sharingan eye and left in civilian clothes to the north gate. There waiting for him was Sakura, all of the rookie 9, their Jounin senseis and parents, the clan heads and the ones with them that saw reason over a false sense of victory, Konohamura Corps, Irika, and the Ichirakus. They left with only 2 minutes left until the end with a myriad of emotions. Sorrow, shame, anger, fear, hope. All of these and more as they were farther and farther away from Konoha. 30 seconds left. Naruto and Kurama made their way to the front gates of Konoha while being met with several Anbu, Root, and shinobi of all kinds, even Jiraiya. They stared lazily at them all while each carried a scroll in their hands. Naruto Uzumaki! Danzo started in an authoritative tone. You have made a grave mistake, brat. 25 seconds left. You come to destroy the Leaf Village, but it is you who shall be destroyed and tamed as Konoha's ultimate weapon. 15 seconds. It is over, you demon. All you will be useful for is being our weapon and showing our enemies that the infamous White Fox bends to our rule. The shinobi were getting ready. 9. Jiraiya was preparing the seal he painstakingly made to stop both Naruto and the Kyuubi. 8. Root Anbu were prepared to sacrifice themselves for Danzo-sama's rule. 7. The civilians hid in their homes, but knew that their village was strong to take anything. 6. Naruto and Kurama unfurled their respective scrolls and unsealed them. 5. Everyone looked on in shock at the barely alive Snake Sannin and their precious Uchiha. 4. Both Kurama and Naruto flung the two past the forces in front of them and into the road for everyone to see. 3. Naruto donned his mask and smirked at the shocked and horrified faces of the people that started to make their way outside to see the bodies. 2. Kurama started to laugh at them all. 1. Danzo turned around towards the two only to feel like he was staring death right in the eyes. 0. And that was when all hell broke loose as explosions rocked the very foundation of the Leaf. First, it was the Academy and Hokage Tower set in a fiery blaze, then various areas around the village. Next was the Hokage Mountain as each head exploded, letting a black liquid ooze out of the mountain and cover all of the village in a matter of seconds. Danzo looked horrified as he and everyone else realized something about this liquid all too late. It was flammable. The next explosion was a big one as it came from both Orochimaru and Sasuke as the two had explosives all throughout their clothed bodies. They exploded in a fiery and gory mess that ignited the substance, and the fire started to spread like was panic and screaming as the entire village was being consumed by the red flames. It didn't help once Kurama changed into her fox form and fired a bijou bomb directly in the center of the village, setting the entire place ablaze even further in black and red Hell's Cape. Just as Danzo and the remaining forces were about to make their move against Naruto in retaliation, the gates suddenly closed on them. All of the gates, trapping them in the growing inferno. People scratching and clawing and begging whatever kami they worshipped to come and save them. But the only thing being heard was the screams from every single person living in the village. Men, women, children, everyone. No one was safe from the fire, and nothing was working in putting them out. Water did nothing. Earth crumbled before the flames. Wind only made the fire surge into the air. Even the toad Gamabunta was no match for the flames, as he was quickly consumed by the fires and taken down with a loud poof sound. Naruto and Kurama, back in her human form, watched the smoke and flames stretch up the walls of Konoha's gate. They listened to the sounds of screams as they got lower and lower by the minute. They didn't even bother staying, as they knew the demonic fire would not stop until all life within the walls of Konoha was no more. They walked away from the still burning village hand in hand and shine back to their home, to be with their children now that the nightmare of Konoha was finally over. Epilogue. It had been 10 years since what happened in Konoha was spread throughout the elemental nation. 10 years of an estranged peace among the nations themselves after the gruesome details of the Leaf's demise by the hands of the now greatly feared and respected White Fox. Many villages and countries sought out the mysterious shinobi for various reasons. Kumo, or what was left of its forces after what happened in Oto, sought revenge, but faced near annihilation and the death of their Reikage. After his death, Killer B realized that there was truly no way to stop this man, or demon if you asked AIM, and surrendered. The same with all of Kumo. They openly surrendered to the White Fox and pledged loyalty to him to avoid complete and total annihilation. Naruto decided to take them up on this offer and appointed B as the new Reikage that only answered to him. Yujito also answered to him and assisted B in keeping Kumo within good graces of the White Fox. Kusa sought an answer for why he did what he did. True, they saw him as their own hero, but they still wished to know the truth. Seeing no ill will towards him, Naruto removed his mask and told them everything as himself, and to say they were shocked was an understatement. After much thought, all of Kusa still saw their savior as a hero who not only defeated AIM, but also wiped out all of Oto and Konoha within a week. AIM was completely fear-stricken by the White Fox and prayed that they would not garner his attention in any way. They lost almost half of their forces when he wiped Otogekure off the map and then heard of what he did to Konoha only less than a week later. They cut off all trade to any places aligned with their own personal version of Yami himself, and prayed that he would leave them alone. Even Konan and Pain, who still had no idea who the White Fox was at that time, were hesitant on his presence. Speaking of Pain and Konan, after the destruction of both Oto and Konoha, the Akatsuki had started to make their move against the demon containers. They had kept silent since the location of Naruto Uzumaki was lost to everyone when he was banished all those years ago. With the destruction of Konoha, they all started to put the pieces together, and figured out that the White Fox might know where the QB container was. All the members of the Akatsuki went in search of the White Fox, and found him heading to Iwagakure for some reason or another. When they confronted him demanding that he tell them the location of the QB container, Naruto removed his mask to show them his true face. To say that they all were shocked that a former Konoha ninja wiped out all of Oto and Konoha itself was definitely a shock to them all. They all engaged him, and one by one Naruto had defeated them all. He killed Haiden and Kakuza with ease, shattered Samahata with a Kayakuma and sliced Kisame in half downwards, shattered Sasori and the Six Paths into pieces, subdued Zetsu and later destroyed him, captured Deidara since they were so close to Iwagakure right now, defeated both the Ryo Pain and Konan. Same with Itachi, and he subdued Tobi after the man tried and failed to use his Sharingan to manipulate the blonde. Naruto had listened to Pain and his reasoning for wanting to do what the Akatsuki were planning to do. He didn't like the idea, not one bit. Seeing as how he took out most of all the members, Naruto decided to spare the last three while taking Tobi's head. It came as a real shock to Itachi when he realized that Tobi was really a formerly dead Uchiha named Obito. Naruto's reasoning for killing him, to send him straight to his now fully fallen team to grieve at what he had lost. The last three were confused as to why he would allow them to go free. That is until Naruto told them he wanted them to stop their own foolish dreams. Pain and Konan to stop their foolish dream of bringing peace, and for Itachi to realize that he was the true, last Uchiha, and his village was nothing but ashes. Naruto left them with Deidara and went to IWA to allow them to think about what they were to do now. In IWA, after Naruto defeated the Akatsuki, He donned his mask again and went into IWA with an unconscious and subdued Deidara in tow. Inoki and Kuratsuchi, along with many high-level IWA nin, surrounded the White Fox until they saw that he had a missing nin of theirs. They relaxed when he told them he only wished for an alliance, and Deidara was just a show of good faith. Inoki was skeptical in his old age while Kuratsuchi was amazed by the power that the White Fox possessed. Everyone was hesitant until Naruto took off his mask to show his real face. Everyone tensed and cursed when they saw his face and recognized him as their greatest enemy ever, until Naruto introduced himself to them, denouncing his father's name. Even stating that his father's actions were the main reason why he burned Konoha to the ground in the first place. They were hesitant at first but later on decided that this man in front of them would bring their village to even greater heights. Naruto later on went to Suna and revealed himself as the White Fox to his friend Gaara. After explaining everything to the container of the one-tailed tanuki, Gaara was easily convinced to ally Suna with Naruto. Wave was next on Naruto's list. He was greeted by the people of Wave with open arms and friendly celebrations. He had offered an alliance with them as well as get the location of Uzushiogakure from Tazuna. He went to the ruins of his mother's homeland and found many things that only he could access because of his heritage. He found out about seals and that some of the village was actually sealed away and hidden underground for safety. Naruto brought those buildings back to the light and was surprised to see that a library and storage building full of clan techniques and the history of the once great Uzumaki clan. Naruto found many things on his people and even found a note from his mother Kushina. It was a letter to the first container of Kurama, Mito Uzumaki, explaining that she was afraid of going to Konoha. That she was hesitant about living with Minato and leaving Yuzu to fend off their enemies without her help. And that she was fearful about what would happen if she had a child and had no choice but to transfer the Kyuubi into her/him. Naruto shed a tear at reading the letter and decided to make a true memorial stone to the fallen Uzumaki clan. He later on, with the help of the people of Wave, rebuilt Yuzu. It didn't take much to convince his family to come to the former home of the Uzumaki clan. After Naruto had successfully restored Uzushiogakure, word had spread about it all. Many loyal Uchiha warriors had returned to see if the rumors were indeed true or not. They were pleasantly surprised to see that it was and that an Uzumaki had restored it. They instantly saw Naruto as their leader, and even wanted to make him the Uzukage of the village. Naruto refused the offer at first, stating that he only wanted to live his days with his family and among his homeland, but after some convincing from his family, he accepted the position. Everyone from the small village in Earth Country migrated to their saver and moved into Yuzu, causing a massive boom in the population. It was good for both Boruto and Akira to see some familiar faces after what had happened to them in Oto. Speaking of Akira and Boruto, both Kurama, Naruto and even a few of the ninja who were loyal to the Uzumaki clan had started to train them and many others at the newly built Yuzu Ninja Academy. Many children were learning about the ways of a ninja, history of the ninja and many techniques as well such as Fuinjutsu. True, none of the kids were at the level both Boruto and Akira were at since they were actual Uzumakis with a natural understanding of Fuinjutsu. But that didn't mean everyone else was slacking off either. The two had grown since Oto. Akira had learned that her bijou was a small, three-tailed and purple fox with pure white eyes. This bijou was still growing inside of her as the years went on, and now is at 5 tails as of right now. Akira could feel the power of her bijou, which was named Yuki because of her eyes, every time she would call for it. Yuki was surprisingly docile and kind to her container, and was most helpful in teaching her many things outside of the academy. Not to be outdone by his sister, Boruto had stepped up in his training. He was still the knuckle-headed and quick-witted kid he always was, but he was one of the top ninja within the academy. He learned many things, including kenjutsu from his teachers and father, fuinjutsu from the family storage vault since he took a very keen interest in the art of sealing, and surprisingly enough genjutsu from his mother. He became one of the best seal masters in Yuzu in such a short amount of time that it came as no surprise that he would reach Chunin easily along with his sister. And just think of the horrible way he and Akira would have been treated if Naruto had went back to Konoha. The remaining remnants of Konoha that Naruto spared were doing well now for the most part. The Ichirakus had set up shop within Kusa and were welcomed by many when they informed the people that they were among the ones loyal to Naruto. They were given permission to live in Kusa and continue serving their famous ramen to the people. The original Inoshikacho were among the few that retired from the shinobi life, along with Shiki Aburame, Asuma and his wife Kurenai, who now had a son, and surprisingly enough Guy, since his eternal rival had done so before the destruction of Konoha. They had decided to live their lives in peace and were in various areas around the elemental nation. Asuma and Kurenai along with their son had moved to the land of spring along with the Konohamura Corp, who later on became bodyguards for the daimyo herself. The original Inoshikacho and their wives had stayed together with what's left of their clan and went to North Water Country. Shiki Aburame and his clan along with Shino decided to head to Tanigakure and rebuild there. Ichiraku had decided to try his hand at being an instructor at Suna. He was welcomed there in good graces since he was also one of Naruto's precious people. Guy and Kakashi had decided to open up a taijutsu school out in a small village not too far from Takigakure. It's a good thing that Kakashi dropped the mask, wore a bandana around his Sharingan eye and changed his hair color to black to draw in less attention. Guy changed his wardrobe but still went on about youth. The last of the Konoha 12 stayed ninja to better themselves not just as ninja but as people. Sakura had found her old sensei Tsunade along with Shizen out in Shimagakure, where she convinced the broken woman to help the people in medicine. Sakura is now a full-time medic that only does ninja work on the side as she helps wherever she is. The current Inoshikacho trio had stayed together as well as become ninja in Kumo under Killer Bee. They have become a very powerful team for the still broken village, and have been steadily building up a reputation for voluntarily doing grunt work to fix the problems of the village. Lee, after leaving Guy-sensei on good terms, traveled to Kirigakure to work hard to live up to the new chance at life Naruto had given him. Niji and Tenten had stayed together and moved out to the village of Yugakure to raise their own children while also teaching at the academy there. Kiba had stuck with his clan and they all became travelers seeking out a refuge to the west that used to house their clan long ago. From what most people can say, the Inuzuka clan was rebuilding and thriving in the chaos of the West. It took a long while for Hinata to see that her crush, her love, her dream was now taken away from her, never to be reached ever again. After a few months of self-grieving, Hinata decided to honor Naruto's last words in living her life for him. She stayed with the Hyuga clan and they all left for South Water Country. It was a good way to restart their lives, and even with the death of their father, Hinata and Hanabi mourned the man he was and then started to rebuild the Hyuga clan to the greatness it once was. The last 3 members of the Akatsuki had went their separate ways, well Itachi did at least. The true last Uchiha had decided to do things for himself and for the future of his clan to survive. He moved around until he stumbled upon the reconstruction of Yuzushiogakure. There, he found Naruto once again and pledged his loyalty to the Uzukage on the spot, nearly begging him for his forgiveness. Naruto accepted this but warned Itachi that the path to true redemption would be a grueling one. Itachi took heed of those words and hasn't regretted his decision ever since. Konan and Pain had left AIM with the sickly Nagato and just traveled around the elemental nation, helping people anytime they could and starting over like they were told. Nagato had no hatred for Naruto or what the blonde had done to his plans for peace, but he regretted never truly thanking the man for giving him this second chance. The 3 would continue to travel together for the rest of their days. Currently, Naruto was sitting at his desk in the Yuzukage's office sifting through paperwork right now. The village had been thriving with all the various alliances and trading that they had all around. Word got out that Yuzu was back and many people came seeking aid on missions one after the other, meaning that they were financially stable as well. Naruto got finished stamping the last of his paperwork and leaned back in his chair sighing. Finally finished, he said to himself as he looked out to the village of his mother. You would have been real proud, Mom. I know you would have. Before he could turn in for the day, 2 jounin and a tall purple fox with 6 tails appeared in the office via Shunshin. Boruto, who had gotten taller and was wearing a standard Yuzu headband and his classic black cargo pants and orange coat over a black shirt, and Akira, wearing an orange and red battle kimono with the Uzumaki swirl on the back, stood before their father. "Hey Ota-san," Boruto said to his father while Akira smiled at her brother's antics. "Just came to say that Mom's getting dinner ready and told us to remind you that it's your favorite." Naruto had a glimmer in his eyes at the thought of that ramen in his mouth and stood up quickly. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go!" he said in an excited tone that caused both his kids and the tall fox Bijou to laugh at him. They all left out the front door and left the office behind. It was a beautiful day in the village, but inside of Naruto's office, just hanging on the wall adjacent to the window overlooking the village, was the one thing that was the cause of all this change. The one thing that will exist as long as ninja exist and evil shows up once more to disrupt the peace. And that thing was the mask of the white fox. Its legacy and bloody reputation is what will be both remembered and feared no matter how long time has passed. The white fox shall always be remembered. And that concludes this story. Thank you for spending your time here at Ichiraku Ramen and listening all the way to the end. Your support helps keep these stories alive and allows the shinobi world to continue through new adventures and alternate timelines. If you enjoyed The White Fox, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. Once again, full credit goes to StringDman, the original writer of this story. If you would like to read the original version, you can find the link to the story in the description below. Let me know in the comments what story you would like to hear next. Until the next time, stay safe, and I'll see you again at Ichiraku Ramen.